I was the orphan child of the celestial realm's war god, taken in by the heavenly emperor's mercy and raised under the care of his consort. There, I grew up alongside the emperor's two sons, our childhood woven together like bamboo shoots after rain. They showered me with affection and protected me with utmost devotion. When I came of age, I intended to repay their kindness by choosing one of them to pledge my life to in marriage. Yet unexpectedly, after their mortal realm trials, they returned with another woman. From that moment, their attitude toward me completely changed. They not only smashed my ancient jade with their own hands, but also burned the silk handkerchief I'd gifted them. That mortal woman even shattered the rainbow glass vessel they'd given me, right before my eyes. Instead of reprimanding her, they fretted over whether the broken shards might cut her. The next day, I knelt before the celestial consort and begged her to arrange a marriage for me. Pointing at the water god's portrait, I pleaded, "Your Grace, let me wed him." 3 days later, I accepted the betrothal gift sent by the water god. Seeing I'd come to my senses, Consort Lumi took my hand and gave it a reassuring pat. "Nara, I'm glad you've come around. We never expected repayment from you, so don't trouble yourself over Kale and Kairos." Now they're both chasing after that mortal woman, terrified of failing to win her favor. Though I dislike seeing them grovel before a human, if that's their choice, who am I to stand in the way of fate? Don't worry about the sea god, though he dwells in the ocean depths. He's truly kind-hearted. When he heard you sought a match, he personally came to ask for my mediation. He'll treat you well after your union. I silently poured tea, listening obediently to Consort Lumi's nagging. I knew she'd always despised my orphan status despite raising me. So when I stopped pursuing her sons and married elsewhere, she was delighted. Little did she know, my heart had turned to ashes when that mortal woman shattered the ancient jade they'd gifted me. Presenting the brewed tea, I excused myself and withdrew, back in my cave dwelling. My eyes stung as I gazed at the shattered jade pieces on the table. This was my mother's legacy, an ancient jade treasure that had fallen into demon hands, until Kale retrieved it for me, to show my gratitude. I embroidered a silk handkerchief with enchanted threads and gifted it to him. I cast restoration spells upon the jade, but to no avail. I'll have nothing left to remember Mother by, just like the bond we'd shared since childhood, gone forever. Nara, when I return from my mortal trials, I'll petition the imperial consort to decree our union. You shall be my crown princess. By then, Kale was already the celestial crown prince. Yet his consort remained unchosen. Then came Kairos, echoing Kale's words, asking me to wait for his return from the trials. Their trials lasted a full century. I still couldn't choose between the two of them. I promised them an answer upon their return. Back then, they even came to blows over me, brothers fighting each other. All this passion, yet no glimpse of warmth. Perhaps it was mistaken from the start. Their desire to wed me was never about affection. Like me, a sardonic smile crossed my face as I picked up the shattered jade, only for blood to drip onto the ground. It didn't seem to hurt, yet tears kept streaming down uncontrollably. "Nara, what's wrong with you?" I looked up at the sound to find Kale standing behind me, having appeared without notice. "Syra lost both parents, and I pity her. She's also grown fond of me. I'll make her my crown princess in time, while Kairos weds you. Does that suit you?" I watched him spin his honeyed words. He wouldn't marry me himself, yet pawned me off to his brother. Kairos suddenly appeared beside him with a dark expression. "I also wish to marry Syra. You're the one who should wed Nara." She never specified which of us she prefers. The two brothers were in my cave, quarreling fiercely over another woman. They completely forgot I was still here. I let out a hollow laugh, turned to grab a handkerchief from the table, and wiped the blood from my hands. Glancing out the window, I saw two orioles perched on the treetop. As I looked down, my eyes suddenly fell upon an origami crane and a flute resting on the small shelf. That was the love token they gave me before leaving for their trials. The paper had yellowed with age, and dust finally settled on the flute. I grabbed both items and hurled them at the two figures behind me. "Get out!" I shouted. The brothers fell into stunned silence, staring blankly at the two objects on the ground. What's the meaning of this? Too furious to even retrieve their discarded belongings, they simply turned and stormed off. I carefully picked up the crumpled paper crane and broken jade flute from the ground before walking away. I halted abruptly before a spirit well and hurled both items into its depths. This well was dug by our youthful hands in brighter days. Noticing my tea rituals, the brothers fetched celestial dew from the emperor's blessed pool and anointed this well with a single drop. Nara, does this enchanted water please your heart? My face lit up with joy. How wonderful, as an orphan, their companionship made me feel no longer alone. Little did they know, I didn't actually enjoy drinking tea, I simply brewed tea for them whenever they visited. That way, they'll stay a little longer. A fairy maiden suddenly spoke behind me. What is Princess Nara doing here? The two lords said they're moving this spirit well to Lady Syra's courtyard. Lady Syra has never tasted this enchanted water before. The lords insisted she should try it. I froze on the spot. So they weren't here for me after all. They came to relocate the spirit well. Who'd have thought they'd reclaim those old relics just for Syra, all because she casually mentioned never tasting it. Echoes rose from the well's depths, as if mourning my sorrow. I shook my head with a quiet chuckle. This spiritual well means nothing to them. Why should I care? It's time to leave them behind. I rose from the well's edge, ignoring the fairy maiden. The next day, Celestial Consort Lumi delivered Divine Maiden Broom's floral banquet invitation, summoning me to the Bloom gathering. Lady Broom is your majesty's aunt who has always doted on you two brothers most dearly. When she learned of your return from the trials, she specifically insisted you must attend. Consort Lumi's constitution is frail. Every childbirth leaves her severely drained of vital energy. So initially the children were entrusted to Lady Broom's care, and during that period, I too remained by her side. Upon hearing of their return from the trials, she immediately hosted this floral banquet to cleanse their travels. Little did she know, my relationship with the brothers wasn't what it used to be. She tugged at my sleeve and said, "You promised me that 100 flowers dance last time. Why wait for someday when today's perfect? Let's have Kale Kairos accompany you, shall we?" Kale used to play my gifted flute for such occasions. Though it had been ages since I last danced, I was about to decline when, to my surprise, Kale agreed before I could speak. Since childhood, we've spent most of our time following the goddess Broom. This dance must indeed be performed. He reached out to me. I understood his silent request for the flute. The flute is lost, Your Highness. You'll need to find another instrument. Syra suddenly stepped forward and interjected, "Why don't I perform this dance instead? I won't even need musical accompaniment. What do you think, Lady Broom?" Hearing this, Lady Broom slightly furrowed her brows and ignored her. To everyone's surprise, Consort Lumi, who had just arrived, also said to me, "Dance for us. Today might be our last chance. Consider it a keepsake for Broom." The ornate words of Consort Lumi carried hidden implications, which didn't escape many listeners' notice. I saw Kale gently take Syra's hand to comfort her. I could only stand at the center of the stage, watching Kale pull out his flute, an instrument he'd never quite mastered. The long unseen scene stirred memories in many, dancing gracefully, just like in the old days. Alas, those bygone days can never return. My heart ached with bitterness, yet I refused to show it before the crowd. Blood began seeping from my palm again, mingling the floral scent in the air with a metallic tang of blood. To my surprise, Syra pinched her nose in disgust, sneering, "What's the meaning of this, Princess Nara? Did you really think this stench would win their highnesses' pity?" Kairos' movement to stop me froze mid-action. His lips parted, but no words came out. Kale said, "Aunt, the dance is over. Let's admire the flowers now." Kale walked over to Syra and led her away by the hand. I let out a soft chuckle, my hand hanging limply at my side as blood dripped onto the ground. Crimson petals scattered across the floor like fallen plum blossoms, yet I felt no pain. The goddess Broom's gaze drifted between us, as if she could see right through our souls. Syra wrenched her hand from Kale's grasp, insisting on performing a dance for the celestial assembly. As the dance concluded, she declared, "I may be mortal, but I'll never yield the one I love, not even to a celestial princess." Her voice grew fiercer despite Kale's protests before she stormed off without another glance. Both Kale and Kairos gave chase in quick succession. Such insolence from a mere mortal. "She's ruined our flower viewing entirely." Goddess Lumi flicked her sleeve with undisguised contempt for Syra in her eyes. Divine Maiden Broom furrowed her brow, realizing Syra was the root of our discord. She produced a mystic salve from her robe and applied it to my wounded palm. When our sibling feud came up, I glossed over the details, merely calling it a quarrel. I smiled faintly. "Aunt Broom, I'm getting married soon. I'm afraid I won't have many chances to keep you company after this." 6 days later, the celestial weavers delivered my completed wedding gown. Princess Nara, come look, the embroidery on this bridal dress is absolutely exquisite. I gave it a cursory glance, barely paying attention. Just then, the voice of an immortal attendant echoed outside. Kairos had arrived. He said, Nara, Syra adores the celestial incense you crafted. Teach her your art. Behind him stood Syra. Radiating haughty arrogance, my expression darkened. Why should I teach her, sister? Please don't be like this. I truly adore the celestial incense you craft. Only by mastering this art of perfumery can I ensnare both princes in my palm, just as you do. Her eyes held nothing but contempt for me. Though she disdained such tactics, she still sent Kairos to seek my tutelage. Sister, why do you have a wedding gown here? Don't tell me you're still hoping His Highness the Crown Prince would marry you. Sister, are you trying to force a marriage proposal? She picked up the wedding gown and showed it to Kairos. Seeing this, Kairos instantly flew into a rage. He took the wedding dress and stepped closer, demanding, what's the meaning of this? Just as Syra claimed. Who are you forcing into marriage? My brother. I met his gaze coolly before letting out a sudden chuckle. When I reached to reclaim the dress, Kairos stubbornly held on tight. Marry me, Nara. Forget about your brother. Think of me instead. He pulled me into an embrace right then and there, paying no mind to Syra's presence. Then with a burst of pyromancy, he reduced the wedding gown to ashes. I froze in shock, my mind in complete turmoil. Kairos' heart was pounding so hard I could feel it through the distance, startling me completely. I struggled to push him away. Undeterred, he tried embracing me again. But I shoved him back with such force that he stumbled and fell. To my surprise, this normally unshakable man had reddened eyes, as if on the verge of tears. Are you truly going to marry my brother? Why do you never take me seriously? You only have eyes for him. I thought pretending to care for Syra would make you notice me. How did it come to this? Syra shook her head in disbelief. She never imagined this outcome. That Kairos had only been kind to her as a ploy to capture my attention. When she was first brought to the celestial realm under the brothers' care, she dismissed their words as mere jest. Little did she know they'd truly used her as a pawn to vie for my gaze. Yet it never crossed their minds that I might marry someone other than either of them. I took a deep breath. Your Highness, I never promised to wed either of you. While gratitude once made me consider it, the choice was always yours to make. Since neither desires it, I shall not impose, even given the choice. You wouldn't be mine. With a faint chuckle, I turned to instruct the celestial attendants to sweep away the wedding gown's ashes. Kairos' eyes darkened at my words. He shoved me away roughly and turned to leave. Just then, Kale walked in from outside. As he passed by Kairos, he heard him mutter, Brother, take good care of her. Kale instantly understood the implication, his face lighting up with joy as he mistakenly believed I'd chosen him. Nara, wait for me. I'll go ask His Majesty to grant our marriage soon. When I first proposed this, Kairos said it wouldn't work. Who knew it'd actually make you choose? He paused before adding, we owe this to Syra. She was the one who supported my plan from the beginning. You have no idea how terrified I was that you'd pick Kairos instead. I couldn't help but laugh out loud, mistaking my amusement for affection. Kale reached out to grab my hand, taking a step back. I pivoted gracefully and settled into the chair. Your Highness should mind his propriety. I'm already betrothed to the water deity of Qinghai. Cease this nonsense at once. For Kale's smile froze instantly as Kairos, who had just left, suddenly reappeared. He grabbed me and said, Nara, why lie to us? If you were truly betrothed, Mother would have told us. Coming to his senses, Kale added, exactly, even if you dislike us being kind to Syra, that's no excuse for deception. I'm telling the truth. I poured myself a cup of tea, took a leisurely sip, then said casually, just 9 days ago I accepted the water god's betrothal gifts, arranged personally by consort Lumi herself. If you don't believe me, you're welcome to inquire with her. Kale's face darkened instantly as he dispatched his trusted aide to verify the matter with consort Lumi. He took the seat opposite me while Kairos stood nearby, visibly fuming. My entire matrimonial affair was orchestrated by consort Lumi alone. The truth can be verified with a simple inquiry. The confidant returned carrying a set of ceremonial headpieces, claiming they were betrothal gifts from consort Lumi. Did Her Highness truly say so? After the confidant delivered the head ornaments, consort Lumi herself arrived shortly after. Spotting them, she immediately demanded, what are you two brothers doing here? Mother, Nara says she's getting married. Is this true or just a joke? Consort Lumi glanced at me and chuckled. She's obviously pulling your leg. How could you take it seriously? A chill ran down my spine like I'd been doused with ice water. The brothers completely disregarded their informant's message and snapped at me coldly. Nara, you actually lied to us. Never thought you'd be this kind of person. We clearly misjudged you. The two brothers stormed out of my cave in succession, utterly furious. I never expected Consort Lumi to say such things. She reassured me, don't worry, I understand you prefer discretion. I'll keep this from those brothers. Your wedding to the water god is in 3 days. Don't let them spoil this joyous occasion. After some deliberation, I ultimately remained silent. The bridal gown the weaver girl embroidered for me had been burned, leaving me in quite a predicament. In the end, I resolved to craft a new gown using my finest needlework skills. Had I not inherited my mother's embroidery techniques since childhood, I might have had to make do with ordinary attire as wedding garments this time. The mere thought of my mother makes my heart ache. Nara, you're to wed the water god tomorrow. Shall I forbid that mortal from attending, lest she causes trouble? No need, your highness, let all attend my wedding tomorrow. Consider it sharing in our joy. Nara, your thoughtfulness leaves me speechless, but perhaps it's better to dismiss them tomorrow. From that day onward, the brothers treated me with noticeable aloofness, which celestial consort Lumi was well aware of. I simply told her to make the arrangements. That night, celestial consort Lumi decided to personally craft a bridal headdress set for me, specifically sending the brothers to gather materials from various places. They took Syra with them wherever they went, and this time was no exception. When they learned the headpiece was for me, they assumed it was for my wedding to them and took Syra to source the finest materials. They trusted Consort Lumi's words, convinced I could never marry the water god. After gathering all the materials, they didn't even bother to visit me. When I boarded the water god's bridal sedan in my hand-sewn wedding gown, the brothers remained oblivious. They were busy chasing rainbow clouds with Syra at the celestial border. Their misunderstanding led me to simplify all arrangements. Only my closest friends attended my bridal procession that day. I came to know them alone, and alone I shall depart. These dear friends were also quite close with the two brothers. They've told the brothers I'm getting married, yet they still wouldn't believe it. Through the sheer red bridal veil, I saw the water god approaching me slowly. When he stopped before me, I caught an unfathomable tenderness in his eyes. His pale lips parted slightly. Nara, do you still remember me? I searched my mind but found no memory of him whatsoever, yet some instinct told me we'd met before. With his steadying hand, I stepped gracefully into the bridal sedan. A familiar fragrance drifted to my senses. This fragrance. The art of crafting celestial incense. I've only taught one person. Without thinking, I whispered, your little Jiao dragon, aren't you? The water god noticed my gaze and turned to look at me. He seemed not to hear my words. What troubles you, my lady? Are you feeling unwell? Waving the incense in the palanquin, I suddenly realized I didn't know his name. Pray tell, my lord, how should I address you? As if reading my thoughts. He smiled knowingly. Turan. My heart skipped a beat. Yes. Turan, that was it. Gazing into his eyes, I saw traces of the youth who once made me laugh. 5. While playing hide and seek with my two brothers, I couldn't find them but instead discovered a young water dragon floating barely alive in the celestial pool, its scales cruelly torn away. Should the heavenly emperor learn his sacred pool has been defiled, this poor creature would face eternal damnation. I devised every means to rescue him, applying the finest spiritual remedies to his wounds. Then I brought him back to my mountain abode, nursing him daily with divine elixirs. Little dragon, are you feeling better? He opened his eyes with difficulty, trying to move but cried out in pain, leaving me no choice but to cradle him in my arms. Seeing him like this, I steeled my heart and plunged a dagger into my own chest. As the orphan child of the god of war, my heart's blood can heal all wounds. The little dragon regained some vitality as the blood touched its lips, with new scales beginning to emerge, yet it paid me little heed, only sniffing at the celestial spices I'd set aside. So I began crafting the divine incense before it, making no attempt to conceal the intricate process. But during one such session, I unexpectedly caught a glimpse of profound sorrow in its eyes. A dragon without scales is like a general stripped of his armor on the battlefield, utterly defenseless. I understood his unease when his scales began regrowing. I sprinkled celestial incense over him, the divine fragrance soothed both mind and body, aiding his recovery, yet the little dragon kept sneezing incessantly, even as I cradled him in my arms. Do you think I look ugly like this too? He broke free from my embrace and darted into the pool. The room still carried the lingering scent of his celestial perfume. I never expected him to still remember me, let alone want to marry me, but saving him back then wasn't for any of this. My mind was in such turmoil that I didn't know what to do, and before I knew it, we'd reached the water god's palace. In a daze, I recalled that time we lay together basking in the warm sunlight. I was helped into the bridal chamber while Turin went to attend the guests. Today, I never expected to meet the boy from my childhood again. It felt like walking through a dream. Late that night, Turin stumbled into the bridal chamber reeking of alcohol. He lifted my red veil and tilted my chin up. Nara, do you recognize the celestial incense burning in this room? I remember when you first sprinkled this incense on me, saying it would make me more alluring, but I'm a man, I don't need these things. He suddenly swept me off my feet and carried me toward the bed. Turin, Nara, we're husband and wife now. This is only natural between us. His breath tickled my neck as he nuzzled against me. That night, Turin and I became intimate, in bed. Turin shed all pretense of being a gentleman, lost in passion. Fragments of memories with Turin surfaced. Perhaps this is what I owe him, I murmured. Turin, I was wrong to treat you like a woman. I was tormented all night, drifting in and out of consciousness. I woke the next morning and reached out, only to find the other side of the bed cold and empty. Seems he's still angry with me. I demand to see Nara. Summon her at once. How dare she marry without consulting us? A maid entered and announced the arrival of the celestial prince and the second prince. Where Kale goes, Kairos inevitably follows. I continued my leisurely grooming without haste. Now that I'm wed to the water deity, it's improper to meet them privately. I sent word to the water deity, but instead of inviting them in, I rose to meet them outside the cavern abode. If they don't believe I'd marry the water god, let them see it with their own eyes. But with today's commotion, they never considered how this would leave me. They claimed to adore me, yet never once thought about my feelings. When we arrived, I glanced around and turned to find, to my surprise, Turin was there too. I was at a complete loss for words. Just then, my brothers moved to strike at Turin. With a swift motion, he shielded me in his arms. Nara is my lawfully wedded wife through proper matrimonial rites, he declared. How dare you behave like this? Have you no respect for your station? That's a damned lie. Nara loves us. She'd never marry you. You must have bewitched her to make her agree to marry you. A mere water demon like you. How could she ever love you? Kairos chimed in, shouting at Turin, release Nara this instant. With a swift rotation of his hand, he struck Turin with an open palm. I chose to be betrothed to the water god of my own will. Had I ever entertained the thought of wedding either of you? That notion shattered the moment you destroyed my mother's Jade legacy. Your highnesses knew full well that ancient Jade was my sole inheritance from mother, yet you let Syra dash it to pieces. 6. Kairos' voice wavered. He stumbled toward me, only to be blocked by Turin. Nara, we were just afraid you might dislike us. We know how heartbroken you were when that ancient Jade shattered. That's why we punished Syra. We'll restore the Jade artifact. Please stop sulking and come home with us. Had Auntie not slipped the truth during last night's conversation, we wouldn't even know you'd gotten married. We've already banished Syra back to the mortal realm. You'll never see her again. Please forgive us, Kale pleaded. We truly know we were wrong. Nara, please come back with us. This isn't where you belong. The man who was always the picture of composure now wore sheer panic on his face, his gaze desperately clinging to me. Kairos clenched his fists, then suddenly slammed them against the ground. After a long silence, he finally spoke. Nara, if you wish to marry my brother, this prince, no, I will grant your wish. You become my sister-in-law. Just return to the celestial realm with us, and I'll promise you anything. His every word seemed to come straight from the heart, his eyes reddening with emotion. But I've already wed the water god, and last night we consummated the marriage. This isn't something that can be settled with just a few words from him. This matter simply cannot be changed now. After all your years of worldly experience, have you ever seen a married couple living apart? You know perfectly well there's no room for negotiation on this matter. Turin pulled me possessively into his arms, clasping and kneading my hand as if staking his claim. A sudden wave of warm fragrance washed over me, flooding my heart with comfort and melting away my discontent. This Turin not only mastered my craft, but took the art of immortal incense making to new heights, from external to internal, right before the two brothers' eyes. He swept me up in his arms. As he turned to leave, he told them, "Since my wife acknowledges you as her brothers, you're naturally my brothers too. I must ask your highnesses to mind your propriety. My wife retired late last night and must be quite weary now. Unless it's urgent, you should take your leave." He simply scooped me up and walked away without another word. The two brothers remained standing there, watching intently. Kale refused to relent, kneeling on the ground as he cried out, "Nara, we'll be waiting for your return." Kairos finally understood. There was no going back. I had truly left them behind. I married the water god. Syra was banished to the mortal realm, and the two celestial princes were utterly devastated. Anyone with eyes could see the machinations behind it all, in the end. These events drove a wedge between me and the two princes. After the brothers departed the water god's palace, Turin carried me back to the bedchamber. The moment I was laid down, he pinned me beneath him, nibbling at my earlobe. Only when I pushed him away did he murmur, "My lady, are you still hung up on them?" I knew what troubled him and gave a faint smile. To my surprise, he took that smile as silent confirmation. He fumed, "Even if you still think of them, I won't let you go. Now that we're wed, nothing shall tear us apart." I ignored his words, laughing even more brightly. After how he'd exhausted me last night, he deserved to stew in his anger a while. After a long pause, I leaned in to catch his scent and remarked, "You truly adore crafting celestial perfumes, don't you?" He immediately laid out the celestial incense he developed right before my eyes for inspection. He rubbed his nose and muttered, "Not really my thing, if it weren't for that time I saw you." I noticed his ears turning slightly pink. He was actually blushing, not catching his last words. I asked, "Then why did you study it so thoroughly? Didn't you love concocting celestial fragrances? I remember you used to fiddle with them daily in front of me, sprinkling the stuff all over my clothes." I chuckled softly, suddenly finding it in my heart to forgive last night's madness. Perhaps his devotion runs so deep, he'd rather merge me into his very being. I took his hand and played with it. Teasing, "Then why did you propose to me?" "Because I'm in love with you." The last words nearly burst from his lips. "For decades I've labored to perfect an immortal fragrance matching yours. No, surpassing it. Even if men face ridicule for wearing perfume, I'd gladly bear it all for you. Had you not thought me unworthy and doused me in celestial perfumes back then, I wouldn't have fled. Now I've mastered this craft just to please you. I proved myself before my father, surpassing all my brothers to inherit his title as water god. Only then did I dare seek your hand, to become worthy of you. Do you understand my heart now?" He conjured another armful of celestial perfumes, pressing them into my arms. "Wait for me, I'll create the finest fragrances for you to wear daily. Until I'll envy the lady I've made you." He kept rambling on to himself, only to turn and find me staring at him blankly, instantly too embarrassed to meet my gaze. He dropped his eyes to the ground. I knew it. He was blushing again. "No wonder you went so wild last night. This husband admits his fault. I'll be gentler next time. Don't hold it against me, my lady." I chuckled and playfully touched his flushed ears, only for him to let out a contented hum before pinning me back onto the bed. "Nara, I've loved you since the day you saved me. I'll treat you right. Anything you desire, I'll make it yours." I wrapped my arms around his neck, our noses brushing. 7. Even after laying things out clearly with both brothers, they still act like they've got a shot. Whenever demons caused trouble near the water god's palace, they'd use it as an excuse to visit me there. Each time Turin noticed this, he'd brush them off by claiming I wasn't available. When avoidance became impossible, he'd take me traveling through the mortal realm's mountains and rivers. The mortal world's crystal-clear waters and emerald mountains rivaled even the celestial realm and water god's palace in beauty. If I hadn't stopped him in time, he would have settled down in the mortal world. This was my first time in the mortal realm. Everything looked so strange and fascinating. I'd never seen such things before, and my curiosity was overflowing. Then he took me back to the very place where he'd secluded himself in meditation years ago. "After you saved me, I fled here and spent years in seclusion. I even mastered your art of crafting celestial incense." He looked at me with puppy dog eyes begging for praise, then snuggled into my arms. After spending over half a month together, I finally realized how deeply the water god Turin cherished me. Stroking his hair absent-mindedly, I suddenly said, "Turin, let's take some time apart." Turin's eyes widened in shock as if hearing earth-shattering news. "What did you say? Say that again." with a single touch from me, he froze in place. Just as I was leaving, a precious jade slipped from his robes. It was unmistakably that ancient jade my mother had left me, but wasn't it shattered? The ancient jade looked brand new at first glance, but upon closer inspection, you could tell it was the same original piece. My eyes stung suddenly. I halted mid-step and sank back into my seat. Did you restore this? With his pressure point sealed, he could only roll his eyes in response. I quickly released his pressure point, only to find myself pulled into his embrace the next moment. He said, I knew this jade meant everything to you, so I poured my all into restoring it. My scales are fused within now. It won't break easily. I meant to surprise you. Never thought. Turin scratched the back of his head sheepishly. As if afraid I'd blame him, I cradled the jade in my hands. Its smooth surface evoking memories of mother's warm palms enveloping mine when she was still alive. My eyes welled up with tears, momentarily forgetting Turin's anxious presence beside me. Nara, I was wrong. I won't touch your things without permission again. Coming to my senses, I wiped away my tears. Thank you, Turin. The moment I finished speaking, Turin was completely stunned. I channeled a stream of immortal energy into the ancient treasure before fastening it around Turin's waist. Turin looked bewildered. Nara, what do you mean by this? With a faint smile, I said, this was originally my mother's gift for me to give to my future husband. The summer heat lingered as cicadas buzzed incessantly outside. Turin mentioned having errands later and stepped out, so I swung on the garden swing alone, swinging back and forth. I drifted off to sleep. In my dream, a sudden chill crept up my neck. Slowly turning into sharp pain, my eyes flew open to meet a grotesque face leering at me. I recoiled in terror, only to be yanked forward by an iron grip. Long fingernails dug into my throat as the metallic tang of blood filled the air. She spoke softly, Nara, what sweet dreams have you been having? The voice made me realize. It was Syra, who'd been cast back to the mortal realm. She had become a demon. Syra, she lowered her gaze, then suddenly looked up at me. I thought your marriage was just a ruse to catch the prince's attention, yet here you are, truly wedded, Nara. What exactly are you scheming? If it weren't for you, His Highness wouldn't have sent me back. I was nearly crowned crown princess. This is all your fault. Marrying someone from the celestial court would have been tolerable, but you had to choose the water god, a deity exiled to the hinterlands. I'll kill you. Her nails elongated further. One forceful squeeze would pierce straight through my throat, but the next moment, she was knocked flying. Nara, are you okay? No sooner had he spoken than he noticed the red mark on my neck. That redness instantly flashed in his eyes. Lay a finger on my Nara and I'll end you. 8. In an instant, Turin transformed into a coiling dragon, circling through the air. The once graceful and proud Syra now resembled a demon, radiating sinister energy from her entire being. They came to blows almost immediately. I gathered myself and ducked behind a tree, clutching my neck. Suddenly, someone grabbed me from behind, panicked. I struggled desperately, then Kale's voice whispered by my ear, Nara, it's me, I've come to take you away. When we return, I'll petition the emperor for our marriage. You shall be my crown princess. His hot breath against my ear made me nauseous. Kairos appeared before me too, spouting the same nonsense as Kale. Turin noticed what was happening and shouted at me in jealousy. Syra was beaten until she coughed up blood, seizing the moment when Kale was distracted. I swiftly broke free from his grasp. Unexpectedly, Kairos suddenly pulled me aside. Nara, come with me now. With a hardened heart, I struck both brothers with a palm strike each before turning to flee toward Turin. Your Highnesses, please return. I am now wed to the water god, and henceforth belong to the water god's palace. No matter the past or present, Turin is the only one in my heart. From now on, you shall all be my sworn brothers. None other than this. Kale made as if to wrest me away from Turin again. When I was right beside them before, they turned a blind eye. Why this sudden change now? Nara, you know you're still sulking. We're taking you back now. You'll thank us when you've cooled down. No sooner had he spoken than Kairos moved to grab me. Turin pulled me behind him protectively. To my surprise, while he was locked in combat with Kairos, Kale slipped behind me and knocked me unconscious before taking me away. Turin has recently shown signs of transforming into a golden dragon. Kairos stands no chance against him. Back in the celestial realm, I immediately slapped Kale across the face. Have you no regard for the second prince's life? I tried to leave, but Kale blocked my path. Refusing to let me go, suddenly, I heard the roar of a dragon. I swiftly pulled the celestial hairpin from my hair and pressed it against my neck. Let me go. Though an immortal body isn't easily harmed, I was betting Kale would let me leave. In the end, my gamble paid off. As I stepped out of the bedchamber, a golden dragon blotted out the sky completely, leaving only its dazzling radiance. To my surprise, Turin ascended to golden dragonhood during his fierce battle with Kairos. Turin carried me on his back and swiftly flew us back to the water god's palace. To my surprise, Kairos actually pursued me all the way to the water god's palace. Second prince, please let me go, stop bothering us. As I spoke, tears streamed down my face, my heart overflowing with bitterness. I never wronged anyone. To repay kindness, I was willing to offer myself in marriage. They refused, so I kept my distance. Why must they still torment me? Nara, don't cry, my lord. Kairos flusteredly tried to comfort me, only for Turin to casually flick his wrist and send him tumbling to the ground. Just then, Kale descended from above, helped Kairos up, then frowned slightly at me. After a long pause, he finally spoke slowly. Kairos, go home. He practically dragged Kairos away, then condescendingly bowed in my direction. After a few steps, Kairos turned back to ask, Nara, are you really not coming with us? I curled my lips slightly. Go on, I like it here. Don't worry about me, brothers, safe travels. Nara, if you ever get tired of this place, remember to call for me. Before he could finish speaking, a dragon's tail sent him flying. Turin had silently shifted into his draconic form, tail coiled and ready to strike. After the commotion, you okay, piece of cake? They're no match for me, especially now that I'm a golden dragon. After 100 years, Turin and I came to the mortal world to travel again. We began to develop new immortal spices, using them ourselves and giving them to poor families in the mortal world. Immortal spices can be used for fragrance, to strengthen the body, and to cure diseases. Why does it seem to me that you didn't learn to make immortal spices just for me? Turin pouted pitifully. You always loved concocting celestial fragrances right before my eyes. I did it all for your sake. Don't tell me you dislike it. I smiled without answering. Of course I loved it. Loved this Turin who painstakingly crafted divine perfumes just to please me. From that day forward, Turin and I lived in conjugal harmony, growing ever closer in mutual understanding. Story 2. Before the apocalypse approached, we moved into a spacious 200 square meter apartment with 4 bedrooms, a living room, and a terrace. We bought the house during the pandemic, and after a fresh renovation, our family confidently stocked up on a substantial amount of supplies. However, before we could even settle in, the pandemic suddenly ended. Just as we were worrying over the surplus supplies filling our home, a zombie outbreak erupted. What can we do? Who's afraid? Our supplies included everything from chicken, duck, fish, and meat to radishes, green vegetables, and cabbage. 1. September 9, 2023. Today we moved. The nearly 200 square meter apartment, with its spacious living room, dining room, and bedrooms, should have been a cause for celebration. Additionally, each building in the complex came with a 20 square meter storage room and an almost 100 square meter large terrace at the top. However, our family was distressed by the living room piled high with various supplies. We had assumed the pandemic would continue for much longer, and the sudden end left us puzzled over how to manage the supplies we had prematurely acquired. Dad said, we can just eat them slowly. After all, they're all non-perishable foods that won't spoil for a year or two. Mom quickly agreed, nodding, exactly, and if the pandemic returns, we're covered. It seems the pandemic scared my mom enough to maintain her stockpiling habits. 2. September 12, 2023. Today we began inventorying our supplies. A rough count shows 200 boxes, detailed as follows: frozen beef, chicken breasts, and pork, each weighing about 50 pounds. With especially a large amount of fatty pork since Dad's braised pork is a family favorite, 30 chickens and ducks each, frozen, 50 boxes of canned fruits, vegetables, and meats, with a shelf life of 3 to 5 years, 10 boxes of rice, shelf life of 3 years, 10 boxes of various flavored milk powders, shelf life of 2 years, 10 boxes of various flavored honeys, shelf life not found, but said to last over 10 years, 10 boxes of compressed biscuits, shelf life of 3 to 5 years, 5 boxes of pasta, shelf life of 3 years, 8 flavors of Korean trendy fruit drinks, 2 boxes, shelf life of 2 years, various chocolates, 5 boxes, shelf life of 1 year, 2 boxes of pork jerky. Shelf life of 1 year, 2 boxes of Sichuan hot pot base, shelf life of 1 year, various flavored chips, 2 boxes, shelf life of 1 year, various flavored instant noodles, 10 boxes, shelf life of 6 months, 2 boxes of glass noodles, shelf life of 6 months, 2 boxes of Claire's vacuum-sealed duck frames, duck necks, chicken wings, duck feet, chicken legs, etc., shelf life of 0, 5 years. 2 boxes of beef jerky, shelf life of 0, 5 years, sufficient personal care items like toothpaste, shampoo, and facial cleanser for 3 years for the family. Dad also stored quite a few teas and liquors, which I meticulously recorded in my notebook. Dad's favorite baijiu, 10 boxes, each with 10 bottles, can be kept for decades, 2 boxes of tea, shelf life of 3 years. As a family fond of stockpiling, we have plenty of other stored goods as well. 1 box of Sichuan cured meat, shelf life of 6 months. 1 box of Sichuan sausage, shelf life of 6 months. 2 boxes of bamboo shoots, shelf life of 1 year. Various nuts, 2 boxes, shelf life of 8 months. Various preserved fruits, 2 boxes, shelf life of 1 year, and numerous other miscellaneous supplies. 3. September 15, 2023, at 6 o'clock in the evening, the seeds Mom ordered online arrived. Both my parents love gardening, but our previous small home didn't allow for it. Now that we have a larger home, they can finally indulge in their hobby. We now have 40 different types of seeds, totaling 200 packets. Mom and Dad must be crazy about planting vegetables. Fortunately, these seeds were inexpensive and can be preserved for 5 to 6 years using a dry storage method. We carefully sealed the extra seeds and stored them in the warehouse. On September 20, 2023, this morning, my parents and I drove to the supermarket. The supplies at home are all long-lasting, but we lacked fresh fruits and vegetables, so we planned a major shopping trip today. In the vegetable section, my mom weighed about 20 pounds of potatoes and sweet potatoes since they store well. We also got some cabbages and onions, and I picked a variety of our usual vegetables like green peppers, eggplants, cucumbers, okra, tomatoes, broccoli, and water spinach. Considering they can only last a while in the fridge, so I didn't take too many. Considering that fruits spoil easily, we only grabbed a few strawberries and cherries. Even though we love them, we did get about 10 pounds of apples and grapefruits, as they keep well for several months. My mom selected 10 pounds of frozen shrimp in the seafood section and chose some osmanthus fish and yellowfin along with a few carps to be freshly prepared by the staff. Dad carried 3 large barrels of oil back to the car. The shopping cart at my supermarket was almost 2 to 3 times the size of those at other supermarkets, and by this time, it was nearly overwhelmed. I ran to the entrance to drag another cart over and continued loading items. Passing through the pharmacy section, my mom picked up some daily vitamins B and C. You and your father need to start taking these every day. Dad and I exchanged a look of dismay, however. Dad was interested in a grill, suggesting we could barbecue on the terrace, which Mom initially opposed. Ultimately, we decided by majority vote, and Dad got the right to buy the grill. I also suggested getting a long-coveted oven for baking meat or making bread and cakes, which no one opposed, and I happily loaded it onto the cart. We leisurely browsed the electronics section, with Mom picking out a new rice cooker. That's when a long board caught my attention. Dad, what's this? A solar panel. It absorbs solar energy and can be used for generating electricity directly. Then let's get one. It can save a lot on electricity bills and has energy-saving benefits, right? A staff member came over promptly, smiling as she explained. You can place it on the roof or the terrace. It not only absorbs solar energy but can also generate power from the wind, complementing each other. So you don't have to worry about electricity on sunny, rainy, or nighttime conditions. Plus, we're having a mid-autumn festival promotion, recommending an 8,000 W capacity, which is more than sufficient for a whole day's use for a household. This model also has a 35% discount and comes with a complete set of supports and wiring. Seeing my parents hesitate, she quickly added, "This can save quite a bit of electricity daily, and it'll pay for itself in just a few years." Mom and Dad seemed tempted, and Dad remarked in a tone of civic responsibility, Energy conservation and sustainable development are indeed good, however, due to the popular demand and impressive discounts on the solar panels, they were sold out today. The staff member informed us that they would restock tomorrow and would arrange for delivery to our address, which I provided. After paying, we drove home happily singing along the way, the car packed from the trunk to the back seat. Unloading these items was joyous but physically taxing. So I borrowed a cart from the property management to transport everything in 5 trips. Once home, exhausted and hungry, we managed to organize the bags of groceries, and Mom started making chicken soup with half a chicken. Suddenly, Dad had a burst of inspiration. Why don't we raise some chickens on the terrace? I quickly agreed, recalling, I remember eating chickens and pigeons raised by Grandma when I was a kid. Home-raised always tastes better, Mom questioned. Won't it smell awful? Are we even allowed to raise them here? Our terrace and living room are sealed with glass. It won't be an issue, so we changed our plans for tomorrow to visit the market. The savory chicken soup was finally ready, served over tender noodles and sprinkled with green onions, making a delicious bowl of chicken noodle soup that we all enjoyed heartily. Today was utterly exhausting. I slept like a log. Today, our family visited the local farmer's market as we passed a stall selling chicks. We couldn't help but fall in love with these fluffy little yellow creatures. They were just too adorable. The owner mentioned that these chicks were easy to raise, so we bought 6 and placed them in a simple cage that the owner gave us. Seeing that we were novices in raising chickens, he suggested that if we wanted to raise more, we could build a simple coop using some wooden planks, which we could easily make ourselves. Next to this shop, there was a small store selling rabbits. I quipped a line from a movie, "Rabbits are so cute. They would taste great as roasted or spicy diced rabbit." My mom nodded in agreement. Rabbits breed prolifically. They might even be easier to keep than chicks, so we immediately picked out 4 adorable rabbits and brought them back home along with the chicks and some fresh fruits and vegetables we bought. By then, it was already noon. It was too late to cook lunch, so I remembered there was a famous Teochew beef hot pot restaurant nearby. I confidently decided to treat everyone. At 12:05 p.m., my dad suggested, let's check out the materials for the chicken and rabbit coops at the supermarket later this afternoon since we have nothing else planned and haven't used up the shopping card. He briefly cooked the beef until it was just tender, dipping the fresh beef in a sauce I mixed from sauté, soy sauce, and sesame oil was deliciously tempting. As I enjoyed my meal, greasy satisfaction all around, I nodded eagerly. I saw many baking tutorials on web yesterday. We need to buy some ingredients and tools. While munching on a soft boiled radish dipped in sesame oil, soy sauce, and a mix of cilantro and minced garlic, I stuffed it into my mouth with a satisfying ah. At 2:20 p.m., feeling drowsy after the hot pot, I wandered through the supermarket. My dad really picked out some wooden boards and other materials to build the coops for the chickens and rabbits. He also replenished some items we didn't buy yesterday. Having just enjoyed the delicious hot pot, we grabbed some spices and bought several bottles of soy sauce, dark soy sauce, cooking wine, oyster sauce, sesame oil, packets of salt, and other everyday cooking essentials. We also picked up some mixed spices, pepper, sweet potato powder, star anise, and bay leaves needed for marinating and roasting meats, while browsing the dried goods section and considering their longer shelf life. My dad grabbed a few bags of dried shiitake mushrooms, red mushrooms, and dried bonito flakes. My mom weighed out some millet, soybeans, black beans, and barley, planning to make soy milk for breakfast. Cheerfully, I ran to the tools section, following recommendations from Xiaohongshu. I picked up some tools necessary for baking bread and cakes. At 3:58 p.m., unlike yesterday, after using up the shopping cart, each of us carried only 2 bags, a relatively light load. The supermarket's parking lot was a bit of a walk from the entrance. We slowly walked to the parking lot. My dad went ahead to start the car and handed his shopping bags to me. The underground parking was a bit stuffy. I saw my dad turn on the air conditioning and roll down the windows to let out the hot air. I opened the trunk and started placing the shopping bags inside. Suddenly, my dad leaned out of the window and said, "Oh no, I forgot to exchange the parking ticket again." I lazily pulled out the receipt from my pocket and yelled back, "I'll go to the supermarket front desk to swap it. You guys get in the car and wait for me." My mom slammed the trunk shut without a backward glance and instructed, "Hurry back. Your dad and I are going to sit in the car with the AC on." holding my umbrella. I walked towards the supermarket. It was already autumn. Yet it was still so hot, making my head spin. As I approached the supermarket entrance, I heard a commotion and several sharp screams from inside. Suddenly, a frantic woman burst out of the supermarket doors and bumped right into me. Ouch! I cried out in pain, holding my head. The woman, instead of apologizing, impatiently pushed me aside and ran off. I stumbled, nearly falling to the ground. More panicked people rushed out of the supermarket, pushing past me so fiercely I could barely stand. The crowd was frantic, pushing and shoving. A few supermarket security guards wielding batons attempted to intervene but were instead knocked down by the terrified crowd, their screams echoing as they were trampled. Was there an earthquake or a terrorist attack? Then, I noticed a few people within a few meters ahead, their faces smeared with blood. Something wasn't right. On closer inspection, these people seemed to have human-like appearances, but, however, they didn't quite seem human. Their bodies were pale and stiff. A few years ago, I inadvertently witnessed a body after a suicide jump. Unlike normal people, their skin was ghastly pale and their joints were rigid. Now, these running people resembled corpses, their heads and limbs contorted in ways impossible for humans, moving swiftly in these unnatural poses. Suddenly, one of them clad in blue leaped with strength and speed beyond human limits, knocking down a young girl in a skirt beside me, his head buried in her neck. Frantically devouring her, blood and small chunks of flesh sprayed out quickly, and the girl let out a scream of unbearable agony. I could even feel the warm droplets of blood splatter on my face. After finishing his gruesome meal, the corpse turned its head towards me. Its eyes were pale and cloudy, staring fixedly at me, its mouth gaping open, dripping with fresh blood. What did I just see? Am I dreaming? Is this a dream? Or am I watching TV? My mind suddenly crashed, blanking out. Unable to comprehend the scene before me, before my brain could process, my body had already thrown the umbrella towards the approaching corpse and swiftly squeezed through the crowd. Using my agility and slight frame to my advantage, I quickly escaped the pressing crowd and dashed towards the parking lot. Just as I was about to cross the street to the parking lot, a familiar car stopped abruptly in front of me. The window rolled down. It was my dad. Dad yelled at me, "Get in." My body reacted faster than my mind. I rapidly opened the passenger door, tumbling inside. Only then did I realize I was uncontrollably shaking, unable to utter a word. All I could think was, run, run, run. From the rearview mirror, I saw the girl who had just been bitten to death on the ground suddenly spring up in the same stiff, eerie manner. Dad had already successfully driven the car out of the parking spot. Fortunately, there were no cars blocking the way ahead, and he headed towards the parking lot exit. But, please pay 10 yuan. The parking barrier blocked our way. The machine's female voice elegantly reminded, "Hurry up and pay the parking fee," Dad said, anxiously looking around as he spoke. I quickly pulled out my phone, trembling as I tried to scan the QR code for the parking fee, but my shaking hands couldn't align with it. I saw in the rearview mirror a large corpse, face covered in blood and flesh, suddenly dropped the food in its mouth. Its head stiffly turned our way and sprinted towards us with the speed of a sprinter. "Ah, your window isn't closed." Mom's scream snapped me to my senses. I hastily dropped my phone, pressing the window button next to me, only to realize I had pressed the wrong button and the window, partially open, began to roll down further. Seeing the corpse getting closer, I frantically pressed another button, and only then did the fully opened window slowly begin to close with its usual graceful speed. Meanwhile, the zombie had crossed the small path between the supermarket and the parking lot, charging towards us. 10 meters, 5 meters, 2 meters, 1 meter, 0, 5 meters, 0, 1 meters, bang, he smashed against the window, his grotesque, bloody face pressing against the glass, a pale, cloudy eyeball fixed on me, and more zombies crowded behind, banging on the fragile window. Our car was trapped, and the loyal parking barrier remained unresponsive. Beep, Mom in the back seat scanned the QR code. The parking barrier recognized our car and slowly lifted. That minute felt like hours, and I nearly lost my life. Only then did I realize my face was covered in snot and tears. In this critical moment, it was still Dad and Mom who came through. Dad accelerated, shaking off the zombies, and we smoothly drove onto the street. Mom and Dad softly reassured me it was okay, leaving me feeling somewhat embarrassed. Facing adversity, they were much calmer than I was. Understanding that keeping as calm as possible was the key to survival, Dad drove the car with focused attention, constantly vigilant of the road conditions. Looking at the bloodstains on the car window, I wiped away my tears. I had to be strong, to protect my parents, to ensure our family could safely make it home. I turned on the car's GPS and set the route home. The voice of the GPS, so familiar and comforting, said, "Ready to start. The journey is 16 kilometers and will take about 19 minutes. Can we make it home safely?" For 6 p.m., we are currently driving home. With the radio turned on, the radio host reported that there were violent brawls and a new virus outbreak in various parts of City X, urging everyone to stay at home, stock up on food, and wait for rescue. The car sped at 80 miles per hour, its interior silent as a tomb, while outside, it resembled a hell on earth. On the sidewalk next to us, a dozen zombies surrounded a person, relentlessly biting and tearing at them. Through the car window, we could clearly hear the zombies' growls and the desperate screams for help from the humans. I turned my head, worried about my parents seeing such a terrifying scene, and tremblingly reminded my dad, "Don't look to the side, I'll watch, Dad, just look ahead." The traffic lights on the street were still functioning orderly, switching between red, yellow, and green lights, but the drivers had long since stopped obeying traffic rules. Panic increased the likelihood of car accidents, and overturned vehicles could be seen outside the window. A scream came from inside a car as its driver and passengers struggled in vain before being dragged out and torn apart by zombies. Meanwhile, Dad calmly maneuvered between zombies and overturned vehicles. I looked back at Mom, who from the back seat took our hands, reminding each other not to be afraid. I knew we all had only one thought: to get home, to get home. As long as we were together, everything would be all right. Suddenly, I felt calm. For 9 p.m., Dad drove seriously, while Mom and I kept watch for any sudden situations, advising him to detour or avoid obstacles when necessary. The little chicks and bunnies in the back seat were also restlessly fidgeting. For 12 p.m., things looked grim. The navigation had led us down a small road, where a bus lay across the middle of the road, completely blocking the lane, towards the direction of the screams. A bus driver, no, a zombie driver, along with his passengers, were feasting on several pedestrians. We slowed our car. Trying to pass by the bus, I saw one of the victims surrounded by zombies, his flesh so mangled that his face was almost unrecognizable, yet he was still alive, struggling amidst the zombies, his unclear yet painfully desperate cries for help reaching us as I watched his legs being devoured into a pool of blood and flesh. He weakly waved at us, attempting to drag his body, but was quickly overwhelmed by zombies. Amidst the horde, I saw his organs and flesh being ripped out. His voice gradually weakened, then there was silence. He was only 5 meters away from me, enduring a torture that made my own flesh ache as I watched. The space left by the bus on the road was too narrow for our car, and there wasn't enough room to turn around. I glanced at Dad, who looked resolute, carefully driving onto the unoccupied sidewalk. The car tilted sharply, my heart racing with fear of any malfunction. If there was an accident, I would rather die from the impact than suffer such excruciating pain. Fortunately, we managed to pass through the sidewalk safely. From the rearview mirror, I saw the zombies by the bus turn towards the sound. He stood up, twisted and pale, his eyes fixated on us as he started to chase our car at an increased pace. I clenched my fists and saw in the rearview mirror that several blood-covered zombies had jumped onto the rear of the car. Fortunately, at that moment, my dad sped up, and we managed to pass by a bus. As the car accelerated, the zombies were flung off by the force and landed on the ground, allowing me to breathe a sigh of relief. However, the scene ahead was even more perilous. The zombie invasion had caused a series of car accidents. A red SUV was hit hard by several other vehicles, becoming uncontrollably airborne and heading straight towards our car. I clenched my fists tighter, holding back a scream that was almost escaping my throat. Dad, with composure, sharply turned the steering wheel and slammed on the brakes, causing my head to knock against the front seat. I held my head and looked up. The SUV was now smashed in the exact spot where we would have been if we hadn't moved. Relieved at the close call, I was about to reflect on our luck when the zombies, attracted by the noise, surrounded the overturned SUV, turning it into a gruesome feast. Dad swerved the steering wheel again. Steering clear of the zombies, we continued forward. escaping the chain of accidents, and I watched the fiery chaos through the rearview mirror. We had survived another ordeal. 4:17 p.m. Finally, we could see a corner of our residential complex. Just one more turn and we would be at the garage door. The car was eerily silent, a silence that was terrifying. We didn't speak, but I knew we all shared one belief: to get home. 4:23 p.m. The car smoothly entered the parking lot, which was dark and unusually quiet. Enveloped in a chilling atmosphere as if something horrifying and unpredictable was waiting for us, the tires slowly moved over the rubber floor of the parking lot, making a sharp, eerie screeching sound. Suddenly, a cold breeze hit me, making my hair stand on end. 4:25 p.m. The parking spot was right next to our elevator. Dad parked the car steadily but didn't turn off the engine. He turned around and whispered, "Let's roll down the windows a bit to check for any unusual activity." Although not many people live in this complex, it's better to be cautious. After pausing for a moment, he looked at Mom, then at me, and continued, "If there's no sign of danger, I'll get out first to check around. Madison, lock the doors immediately after I get out, and keep an eye on my signals. If there's any trouble, I'll try to draw them away while you stay in the car and follow my instructions. Don't move recklessly. If I can't lead them away, Madison, you'll take over and drive. Don't get out of the car, and remember, no, let me go and check. I've trained in Taekwondo and even got third place in long-distance running," I blurted out, my words tumbling out as tears threatened to fall. In times like these, you need to listen and stay calm. It's more dangerous for everyone to run out of the car. Stop arguing, and just follow my instructions. Dad had never been so stern. Seeing that I still hadn't responded, he added, "The occupancy rate here is low, so there's unlikely to be any trouble, but if we don't organize ourselves properly, that's when accidents happen, understand?" I lowered my head and slowly nodded. Dad then laid out the plan. "If everything is clear after I get out, I'll open the trunk and take out 3 bags. Mom, you handle the chickens and rabbits. Madison will handle the access card to open the door. On my signal, both of you get out of the car at the same time, and we'll run to the electronic gate together." Dad instructed. Mom and I nodded in agreement, and she whispered, "Be careful." We cracked the car window slightly. From past experiences, we knew that zombies tended to emit a hissing roar continuously, but after listening quietly for a few minutes, we heard no such sounds. Dad nodded at us, quietly opened the car door, and stepped out. Watching his figure, I felt like crying again but held back the tears. Now was the time to stay calm, I reminded myself silently. Everything went very smoothly. Seeing Dad's signal, Mom and I, in perfect sync, jumped out of the car and tiptoed towards the gate. Once we all made it inside, I quickly shut the heavy door, took 2 bags from Dad, and Mom pressed the elevator button. The elevator was still at the basement level, just like when we had last used it. Entering the elevator, I recalled what the security guard had said: our building, number 5, seemed to be occupied only by us. But just to be cautious, I stood by the elevator controls, my right hand ready on the close button, prepared for any unexpected events as I watched the elevator slowly ascend from the basement to the first, second, third floors, and up to the 25th floor. Suddenly, the elevator jolted, and my heart leapt to my throat. My mind raced with the image of a zombie with a ghastly, fanged face barging into the elevator, its gaze fixed on the closing doors. Fortunately, the elevator only paused briefly before resuming its ascent to the 30th floor. Dad signaled to us. He tiptoed out of the elevator, looked around, and then nodded to us. We then hurried to our apartment, moving at a brisk pace, perhaps due to the sweat on his hands. Dad struggled several times with the fingerprint lock before we finally heard the familiar clunk of the door unlocking, and I allowed myself a slight relief. The whole ordeal felt like it lasted an eternity. The security door swung open, we tumbled inside, and once we were all in, Dad closed the door and locked it behind us. 4:36 p.m. Once home, I almost collapsed on the floor, overwhelmed by relief. Holding the shopping bags, tears and sobs mingled as we sat in silence for a moment. "That was like something out of a zombie TV show, wasn't it?" Mom whispered. I nodded, my voice choked with emotion. It was too dangerous. They were so close. It was really a close call. Mom and Dad were amazing. Mom hugged me. "I'm just glad we're all back home now, safe together. Madison did great today." Staying so calm, I burst into tears. hugging my parents and wailing, "I'm sorry, I really wasn't ready, thank you both." Dad patted my head. "I'm going to make some braised pork now," I sniffed, tears rolling down again. "Why make it just for us? You love it too." 4:40 p.m. Mom turned on the TV. Through a gap in the curtains, I saw zombies still wandering on the street opposite. Some unsuspecting pedestrians were quickly surrounded and devoured. I quickly drew the curtains shut, wiping my tears and sniffling. I watched the news on TV. The anchor reported in a firm, professional tone that these creatures are currently referred to as zombies. They no longer possess human consciousness or characteristics and have a voracious appetite for fresh flesh. The known transmission methods are through bites and scratches. Unexpectedly, besides the supermarket we visited today, there were simultaneous outbreaks in 21 locations across the city. The subway line 5XX station is the busiest station in our city, along with other locations such as the high-speed train station, supermarkets, and pedestrian streets. Not only in our city, but zombie attacks also erupted simultaneously in other densely populated first- and second-tier cities. Cities that have not yet experienced outbreaks have issued notices and are urgently implementing quarantine and inspection measures. What's more terrifying is that the army has been infiltrated by a large number of zombies at the same time, making it impossible to deploy armed forces to clear the wandering undead. Therefore, the announcer repeatedly urges citizens to stay home, lock their doors and windows, stock up on food, and wait for rescue. News from other countries indicates that it's not only our nation. The zombie virus has simultaneously broken out around the world at 4 p.m. Beijing time. The host also provided information about the behavior and habits of zombies, similar to what we've seen in The Walking Dead. They mainly rely on hearing and smell since their vision is extremely poor, and they have lost human thought, possessing a strong desire for human flesh. Their strength and speed are similar to those depicted in Train to Busan, with significant capabilities in running and jumping. Experts analyze that the zombie virus has an incubation period ranging from 30 seconds to 24 hours, depending on the individual's physical constitution. Currently, there is no known antidote or vaccine. Moreover, the virus seems to specifically target genetic mutations in humans, with no signs of infection in other animals. Amid my fear, I felt a slight relief. Thankfully, these aren't the zombies from Resident Evil. Otherwise, only a superhuman like Alice could survive. Despite the chaos visible behind the host and the subtle fear in her eyes when she mentioned words like zombies, death, and mutation, she continued to deliver the news with utmost calm and professionalism, which was admirable. Then, the news broadcast ended. My mother looked worriedly at the groceries we bought today and said, "The food we stocked up from the supermarket might last us a little over half a year. Can things improve by then?" At 4:50 p.m., while the news was still playing on TV, I took out my phone, which was bombarded with various notifications filled with text, images, and videos. Shocking, zombies are really here. Entire city under martial law. City X issues a notice to suspend all classes and work. Investigation ongoing into the serious incident at XX subway station. It's true. Something happened in City Y. It's really fallen to zombies. Who are you kidding? I'm in City D, and everything's fine here. Those videos and images online must be from that World War Z movie, right? National security announcement. Do not go outside. End of the world. I'm trapped in an office building in XX. Someone please rescue me. City X issues a second notice for mandatory quarantine and home isolation. Wait for rescue. I can't reach my son working in City H all of a sudden. I just went outside and got bitten by a madman. What's going on? I think my roommate turned into a zombie. What should I do? Waiting online. Hey, insider news. It's a virus leak from a biochemical experiment at XX Research Institute. My daughter works there. The end of the world is coming. Everyone should rush to the supermarkets while there's still food left. Please be cautious, everyone. I opened all the chat groups and chat boxes again. The school group has announced the suspension of classes and recommended that students stay home and isolate. In the college group, some classmates and friends shared their relief from surviving the ordeal, while others have not spoken again. A few close classmates and I reported our situations to each other. My parents also checked on relatives and friends in the Instagram group. My grandparents passed away a few years ago, while my maternal grandparents are currently with my uncle. And they are all safe at the moment. 5:30 p.m. Chick and Bunny were temporarily placed on the balcony. Chick's dinner was half a bag of grain feed, and Bunny's dinner included hay purchased from the farmer's market and a bit of carrot. We bought several large bags of hay and 2 bags of hay seeds from the rabbit owner, planning to grow them on the balcony. Watching Chick and Bunny eat with relish made my stomach growl too. 6:40 p.m. As it got darker, my mom turned on the lights. I peeked through the gaps in the curtains at the pitch dark and terrifying outside, then back at our warm and tidy little home, feeling a wave of cozy happiness and safety. My dad prepared a feast including braised pork, stir-fried pork, steamed osmanthus fish, hollow vegetables, and milky white cushion carp tofu soup, filling the table. The aroma of the food made me forget all my worries, and I sat down in a daze. Even if it's the end of the world, we must eat well, my parents said with a smile. 7:30 p.m. Although we had been scared all day, our appetites were exceptionally good. We devoured the 4 dishes and 1 soup completely. After a hearty dinner, my mom and I organized the items we had bought over the past few days. Dried goods and seasonings were placed in the kitchen cabinets. Vacuum-packed flour and rice, because the storage was full, had to be temporarily placed in the kitchen. Fresh fruits and vegetables were wrapped in plastic film and put in the fridge, which was now packed to the brim. As our family loves cooking and shopping for groceries, we bought a fridge twice the size of a regular one, and it was still packed full. We stored long shelf-life items in the warehouse and kept short shelf-life items in the dining room, guest room, and kitchen. Looking around, I saw the huge fridge filled with various foods. The top layer was packed with fruits, vegetables, and eggs wrapped in plastic film. The middle layer had all sorts of frozen food like dumplings, buns, wontons, and beef balls. The bottom layer was neatly filled with various kinds of chicken, duck, pork, whole chickens, whole ducks, whole fish, and frozen shrimp. There were also hundreds of boxes of food that couldn't fit in the warehouse or guest room, and the kitchen floor was piled with bags of sweet potatoes, cabbage, apples, pomelos, rice, flour, and noodles. My gaze finally rested on the dozens of large boxes of soil and fertilizer that had arrived a few days ago, as well as hundreds of packs of food seeds, and Chick and Bunny, now bustling with life in their cages. Wow, I feel incredibly secure. I jumped up and hugged my parents. It's like we've got a huge cheat code on, and it's a bit too much. 11:30 p.m. After finishing all these tasks, I squeezed into my parents' room with my blanket, lying beside my mom on the soft, dry bedding. Thinking of all the horrific, bloody events of the day, accompanied by the faint roars of zombies outside the window, I thought it would be a sleepless night, but surprisingly, I slept very sweetly. September 22, 2023. In my sleep, I was awakened by the scent of fried eggs. For a moment, I thought it was a beautiful, ordinary Saturday morning. But intermittent screams outside the window reminded me that today was no ordinary day. Hungry, I got up and saw delicious fried eggs, pan-fried buns, and soy milk on the table, with my parents cheerfully calling me to eat. I took a bite of the pan-fried bun and immediately started dancing happily. It was so fragrant, soft, and delicious. Dad had already risen early and quickly prepared the chicken and rabbit houses on the balcony. The 40-square-meter balcony, for various reasons, had been heightened by my parents, and they had enclosed the semi-open space with clear glass for safety and to ensure light could enter. Now, the chicken and rabbit houses Dad built were placed in the shaded part of the balcony, spaces that could eventually house more than 50 adult chickens and rabbits. So now, the 6 chicks and 4 bunnies seemed to be living in a spacious flat, leisurely eating the homemade feed we prepared in the corner. Dad told us that originally, 20 square meters of the balcony was left empty for tables and chairs to make a leisure area where we could drink tea and relax. However, given the special circumstances, we planned to remove these tables and chairs and use the space for growing plants, and Mom and I quickly agreed. An extremely wise decision, Mom said, mimicking a sycophant from TV. While eating breakfast, we turned on the TV to listen to the news. The situation was worse than I imagined. According to information summarized from platforms like Jihu, Weibo, and TV, the virus was orchestrated by a world-class anti-human terrorist organization, Group A, which follows the creed of a human cleansing plan. From surveillance, it was discovered that members of the terrorist organization used a sacrificial method to on September 21, 2023, at 16:00 Beijing time. Selected members around the world simultaneously injected themselves with the R virus, which instantly transformed these sacrificial individuals from humans into walking corpses. The outbreak was sudden and unanticipated, leading to an extremely severe zombie epidemic that paralyzed urban systems worldwide. Taking our country as an example, only first and second-tier cities were infected yesterday. Due to panic, a massive number of people drove overnight to smaller cities and rural areas seeking refuge. Unfortunately, several major highways were overrun by zombies, leading to multiple car crashes and rivers of blood. Most vehicles were stuck on the highways, turning them into feasts for the zombies. Fortunately, some people managed to escape the cities, and governments in rural areas and some cities set up smaller-scale shelters. Some third and fourth-tier cities and rural areas were also infected. Research on a vaccine has already begun. Experts have explained that attacking zombies in the head can completely immobilize them, turning them back into mere corpses. They also introduced some weapons suitable for civilians, such as sharp knives. At home, we found a set of knives we had previously bought, 4 of which met the requirements. We carefully stored these knives, placing 2 at the front door just in case. After watching the news, we were all quite heavy-hearted. Sitting at the dining table, Mom handed each of us a banana, and I suddenly felt like a monkey in a zoo, eating the banana. Dad half-jokingly said, "Let's start our first family meeting. Madison, take notes." After finishing our bananas, I sat with my laptop. Mom noted that while we had plenty of food, we only had a little more than 1 box of drinking water left, likely only enough for a week. I carefully recorded this in the document. Suddenly, I remembered, yesterday, I got a text about the solar panels delivered to the convenience store in our community. It was so chaotic yesterday, I forgot to mention it. Should we go pick it up? No, both Mom and Dad said almost simultaneously. It's too dangerous. Thinking back to yesterday's horrifying scenes, I was still shaken. But I heard that there might be water and power shutdowns in the apocalypse, and if that happens, the solar panels would be very useful. After much discussion, we decided to wait for further notice. If there were announcements about water and power cuts, we would then go to the convenience store to pick up the parcel. Mom then remembered, regarding how to grow vegetables and fruits or raise chickens and rabbits. We don't have any experience. It's all dependent on search engines. If the internet goes down in a few days, we'll be stuck. We should save all relevant videos, articles, and ebooks while we can. That reminded us. Mom, you're so smart, Dad said. Makes sense. Let's be busy these next few days downloading everything. That way, even if we lose internet later, we can still learn. I added, I saw on web someone even wrote a survival guide for the apocalypse, including how to preserve rice, vegetables, how to make recipes, and how to utilize rainwater. Dad summed up, let's start downloading these materials this afternoon. Let's discuss what we need to avoid duplication, and each person can take charge of different areas. Dad, 1. Essential medicines and a guide on how to use them. 2. Gardening guide. 3. How to collect and filter rainwater. 4. Electrical work guide. Mom, 1. Husbandry guide. 2. Food preservation guide. 3. Various recipe guides. Madison, 1. Information on zombies. 2. How to make apocalypse necessities. 3. Survival kit guide. For others, by the time we finished discussing all this, it was already 12:30, and we were getting hungry. Thinking about the many tasks I have to tackle this afternoon, I opted for a simple lunch. I quickly whipped up 3 bowls of fans by following the instructions on the package. First, boil the noodles in water. Then reheat the pot and add various ingredients such as Thai broth, spicy soup, vinegar, and dried tofu skin. Finishing off with some fresh lettuce and topping each bowl with a fried egg. The base of the fans was incredibly fragrant. I buried my head and slurped the noodles, occasionally lifting the bowl to gulp down the tangy and spicy broth, which was exceptionally aromatic due to the chili oil. The sour and spicy flavors made me break into a slight sweat. This brand of fans even included snail meat, which was firm and delicious. The noodles were chewy and flavorful, and I eagerly devoured the entire bowl. I could hear the sound of my parents slurping their noodles. Ha ha ha. My dad finished all his soup and complimented, "Your classmate has a great taste in food. This is even better than what I had ever eaten." After lunch, we didn't dare relax. following a tight schedule, we each grabbed our laptops and iPads and began searching and downloading. The 2 computers and 1 iPad were busy at work. We also saved the videos and documents we deemed necessary on our phones. On the morning of September 23, 2023, we continued to busily download various materials. I wrote a Python script to download documents based on category keywords from the internet, significantly reducing our workload. We used the saved time to search for new materials. Following the survival guide, I prepared a survival pack for each of my parents. My mom sewed a knife sheath onto our pants, making it convenient to attach a small knife to our waists. We checked the news every hour to ensure we were updated with the latest developments. The situation was growing increasingly grim, with more areas becoming infected and the severity escalating. The news repeatedly urged everyone to stay indoors, lock their doors and windows, and informed that the military had begun clearing zombies from the outskirts of some cities and would try to ensure normal water and electricity supply. Short videos were no longer dominated by internet celebrities but were filled with alarming footage of zombies attacking passers-by, which was quite unsettling. However, there were also some positive videos. The National Security Department promptly released a video tutorial on how to deal with zombies for ordinary people. It started with a professional explanation that attacking a zombie's brain was the only way to stop it, but since their skulls are hard, untrained people might not be able to penetrate them. The video detailed how to create a sandbag straw mannequin that could withstand the same pressure as a zombie's skull using household materials and recommended practicing stabbing it with a small knife at home. For those with dumbbells at home, the video suggested using them to increase arm and back strength and power. A prominent part of the video was a set of zombie fighting knife techniques demonstrated by male and female military officers. It covered different heights, angles, and numbers of zombies, with many videos offering detailed explanations. The department recommended practicing these techniques daily at home. This video became very popular online, with tens of thousands of comments thanking the government for saving lives with these techniques. Some even uploaded videos of their practice sessions, showing seemingly frail girls defeating 2 zombies using the techniques. Another popular technical video showcased how to make various weapons, such as bows and arrows or long-range weapons made from sticks and knives, which also received many likes. I quickly downloaded all these videos to my phone and computer. It was touching to see these skilled individuals helping so many others survive these tough times. In the afternoon, I made several sandbags and constructed something like a straw mannequin using leftover materials from the chicken coop. My parents and I began actively taking turns practicing the knife techniques. We unanimously decided to engage in at least half an hour of aerobic exercise daily. We have a treadmill at home, and over an hour of anaerobic exercise using dumbbells, along with practicing the knife techniques for more than an hour daily, because in these end times, physical fitness is essential. Initially, our knife techniques looked rather odd, but through mutual practice and correction, we gradually started to look proficient. My dad and I also managed to make a bow and arrow using materials we had at home. Though we ran out of materials to make another, my dad expressed some regret, saying, "A decade ago, I was an archery enthusiast and often practiced at archery ranges. As I got older, I stopped and even discarded my bows. Otherwise, we could have had a few well-crafted bows with much stronger range and power." On September 24, 2023. We reviewed the recommended knowledge list from online experts to identify any gaps and downloaded additional relevant books, videos, and materials locally. My Python script was also busy downloading books on literature, science, computing, agriculture, medicine, nutrition, classic movies, TV shows, documentaries, aerobic and anaerobic exercises, and more, ensuring we had plenty to keep us occupied should we go offline. It's definitely better than just sitting around at home staring at each other. Considering the psychological stress induced by the apocalyptic environment, I've downloaded a number of psychology books to prepare ourselves. In case we encounter any psychological issues, we can help each other through mutual psychological counseling. I found 2 new hard drives in the study, so we can download as much data as needed. We sat at the dining table holding our second family meeting, trying to figure out what else we needed to prepare for survival in the apocalypse. Meanwhile, a Python script was efficiently downloading data, and the latest news was playing on the TV. Besides hoarding food, I also have a penchant for collecting various notebooks, so there are at least 40 to 50 beautiful notebooks at home. I also hoarded 2 small boxes of A4 paper that college students use for drafting, over a dozen fountain pens, and about 20 bottles of ink in various attractive colors, so we're well stocked on paper supplies. Now, whenever I come across a useful idea or piece of knowledge, I immediately jot it down in a notebook, fearing I might forget it since electronic devices can get damaged, but paper is less likely to. In the evening, our third family meeting began seriously with the sound of us munching on nuts. We sorted through the data we had downloaded and found a lot of duplicates these next few days. We need to organize it and free up space to continue looking for new information. I noted all these tasks in my notebook. Our minds have been racing these past few days, thinking about anything we might have missed. Suddenly, our 3 phones buzzed with notifications. We checked our phones together. I saw a message from our local community group asking for information about each household in a standard format, including apartment building and unit number, along with the number of safe individuals in each family, like XX Complex, Building XX, Unit 1101, Lee Daming, 5 people safe, XX Complex, Building XX, Unit 3102, Lin Xiuxiu, 1 person safe. I sighed. What's the use of just collecting information without mentioning when they'll send help? Mom was about to reply in the group when Dad immediately stopped her. Let's not expose our information and address. Seeing our puzzled faces, Dad explained. Whether the virus can be controlled is still uncertain. If it can be controlled, we have enough food, whether we report it or not. But if it can't be controlled, and we've exposed our information and address in such a large group, some unscrupulous people in the group might realize we're only 3 people and have our exact address. They could potentially rob us, and no one would be able to help us then. We nodded vigorously. Dad repeatedly instructed us not to disclose our information and address to anyone, not even friends, classmates, or colleagues. If anyone asked, we should just say we went back to our hometown. We nodded again. I thought of the scenes from The Walking Dead. In an apocalypse, what's scarier than zombies is people. Suddenly, Mom thought of something and got up to turn off all the lights in the house, leaving only the dining room light on. She explained, although we have blackout curtains, a little light still leaks through at night. From now on, it's safer to only use the small dining room light, which is barely visible from outside. This time, it was Dad and I who nodded vigorously. I wrote this safety tip in big red letters on a piece of paper and taped it next to all the light switches in the house as a reminder. Later in the night, while my parents were asleep, I couldn't sleep, haunted by the terrifying zombies I saw in videos today. The best way to fight this unease was to get stronger. I immediately got up and practiced my knife skills for over an hour. After feeling hungry, I went to the kitchen to make a bowl of instant noodles, slicing some sausages and adding some lettuce, accompanied by Claire's spicy duck feet for a midnight snack. Wow, the braised beef noodles were really satisfying. I slurped the soup immersively, quickly finishing it off. Content. I lay back down in bed, ending another day full and asleep. 9. September 25, 2023. Dad and I used old clothes, bed sheets, and foam from delivery boxes to make homemade targets. Dad practiced with his homemade bow and arrows and felt he had almost regained his former proficiency. Today, my knife skills also felt unusually smooth. After practicing for a while, it was already noon. We sat down to enjoy a meal of simple noodles prepared by Dad, accompanied by mildly spicy duck necks and wings from Claire, while watching the news on TV. The news reported that the hydroelectric power stations in some cities had collapsed, resulting in water and power outages. Our city, X-City, might face similar issues in the coming days, and the government was making efforts to maintain stability. We exchanged glances and after a brief discussion, decided that a trip to the convenience store was necessary. Dad said, "I'll go this afternoon. You two stay home. We're well armed now, so in case we run into zombies, we can at least fight back." Mom and I almost simultaneously said, "I'll go with you." Dad looked at us disapprovingly. "Someone needs to stay home, to keep our base secure." I hurriedly said, "I'll go." Mom stays. I handled the knife really well today, and having 2 of us there is safer. Dad looked hesitant. "You did practice well today." But, Mom, worried, chimed in, "I should go then. You guys mustn't run into any trouble." I showed them my knife skills I had practiced today and flexed my modest biceps and triceps. Promising to obey diligently, I made it clear that if they didn't let me go, I wouldn't let them go either. Reluctantly, they agreed. we checked our current supplies. The mission for this outing was not only to retrieve the solar panels stored at the convenience store but also to restock on bottled water. From the 3 crates of water we previously bought at the convenience store, only a little more than 1 crate remained, calculating at 5 liters per large bottle. With each adult needing 2,500 to 3,500 milliliters daily, the 3 of us would need at least 10 liters per day. Conservatively, for 3 months, we would need about 200 large bottles. Mom added that if we could find any spices at the convenience store, we should stock up, particularly on salt, as we were down to our last 2 packets. Salt was essential not only for cooking but could also be used to make saline solution in emergencies, a crucial supply for our survival. Also, if there were band-aids and cold medicine at the convenience store, we should grab more. As we only had half a pack left at home, Dad drew out our supply run route in a notebook, planning to drive the car out of the garage, through the underground parking to stop right in front of the convenience store. Once we confirmed the situation at the convenience store was safe, Dad would take position at the door with his bow and arrows, while I handled loading the solar panels, water, salt, and other supplies. Armed lightly, we each carried a sharp short knife in our trouser sheaths. Dad carried a bow with 5 arrows in a rather ugly quiver Mom had sewn. I wore a small backpack filled with several large woven bags for carrying supplies and 2 noise-making alarms found at home. Given zombies are sensitive to noise but have poor sight, if there was a risk, I would throw the alarms to distract them with the noise, allowing Dad and me to escape back to the car and head home. With everything ready, we set out. The journey from our home to the parking lot and then to the convenience store went smoothly, and we didn't see any of the unsettling zombies from the previous days. But as we parked steadily in front of the convenience store and saw the doors tightly shut, I suddenly felt uneasy. Dad nodded at me, and with a gentle push, we opened the convenience store door, clutching our knives and stepping back. The door creaked open, revealing 2 zombies, a man and a woman, rushing towards Dad and me. The male zombie, who appeared to be the convenience store owner we had seen days before adorned with a thick gold chain, moved swiftly towards me. This zombie looked different from the ones we had seen before due to the severe heat, showing signs of advanced decomposition, far more horrifying than any made-up actor in The Walking Dead. I aimed my well-practiced knife technique at the zombie's head, but he let out a chilling scream that startled me, causing my aim to shift to the edge of his neck. Seizing the opportunity, he lunged at me, his bloody hands grasping wildly, catching my hair. Unable to exert force smoothly, his highly decomposed face was just inches from mine, his gaping, foul-smelling mouth lunging for my face. In a split second, after my dad dealt with a female zombie using a bow and arrow, he quickly ran over and grabbed the zombie boss's thick gold chain from behind. I seized the opportunity to pull out my dagger and stab the zombie boss in the head, causing putrid blood and brain fluid to spray all over me. Finally, the zombie boss lost its vitality and fell to the side. After pulling out the dagger, my dad and I cautiously entered the convenience store to scout the area. The store was quite small, about 50 to 60 square meters, and we could see the entire area at a glance, confirming that there were no other zombies or humans inside. Sticking to the plan, my dad stood guard at the entrance with his bow while I headed to the delivery area. I quickly located my solar panels, which were conspicuously large amid the small delivery boxes. It took several trips to load them into the car, along with several boxes of water until the vehicle was completely full. We had to transport this load back home first, before returning for more. Since many people in the community needed bottled water, the store had a relatively large stock of it. I loaded dozens of boxes into the trunk of the car, one by one, until it was full. Exhausted, I caught my breath, feeling like my lungs were about to burst, and silently vowed to do more aerobic exercise in the future. After loading the large water bottles, I began moving medium and small-sized bottled waters to the back seat of the car. Lastly, I filled several large woven bags with all the loose bottled waters. With the trunk and back seat filled, I placed a large bag of water in the passenger seat and started looking for other supplies. My dad kept watch at the door and noticed nothing unusual. I swept about 30 to 40 packs of various brands of salt into a bag, and fortunately, found 2 more boxes in the storage area, which I also placed in the trunk. As for medical supplies, I only found a few boxes of band-aids and gauze. When I saw the cola my mom loved, I quickly grabbed a box, Thinking she would be happy to have it even after the apocalypse, the car was now too full to fit anything else. After scavenging the supplies, I signaled to my dad that we were leaving. I sat in the passenger seat holding a box of cola, with a large bag of loose bottled water at my feet. Luckily, the trip home was smooth. We moved the supplies to a small cart provided by the property management a few days earlier and quickly took the elevator home. My mom had been waiting at the elevator entrance and, seeing the blood on my hands, immediately panicked. I hurriedly reassured her, "It's all from the zombies, I'm not hurt." Her eyes welled up as she said, "What would I do if something happened to you?" I cheerfully comforted her, "Aren't we back now? With plenty of supplies, we don't need to go out anymore, we don't have to worry." Together we moved the supplies into our home. And my dad and I disinfected ourselves several times with alcohol before rushing to shower. The warm water gradually washed away the stains on my hands. Reflecting on today's events, I thought about how in typical zombie stories, I disliked how the brave male lead always had a ditzy female sidekick, just like those heroines. I almost held my dad back today. I sighed and resolved to train and practice more diligently in the future. After disinfecting the supplies we brought back, my dad started figuring out how to install the solar and wind power heating panels. My mom started cooking. I was responsible for inventorying the supplies, logging about 1,300 L of various sizes of drinking water, enough to last us several months. I proudly presented a box of cola to my mom, who teared up again and said, "At a time like this, I don't need to drink cola." Happily, I responded, "Even if you don't drink it, I want you to have some. I'll put it in the fridge. And whenever you feel like having some, just grab a can." As I unpacked the box of cola and stored the drinking water, I realized the storeroom and guest room were already filled with food supplies. My dad and I, working together, installed several solar panels, batteries, and a few wind turbines on the rooftop of our building, following the instructions to lay them flat on the roof and connect the wires, finally integrating them into our home's electrical circuit. Dad fiddled with a few buttons and adjusted the wires, then looked up at me, clearly pleased, and announced, "It's working now." We reconnected the original wires, preparing for a switchover in the event of a power outage. After finishing the work, Mom had already prepared a sumptuous dinner: braised fish, a dry pot with 3 kinds of seafood and cabbage, and a large bowl of vibrant Westlake beef soup. As I savored the delicious meal, I asked, "What are we doing tomorrow, Dad?" Picking up a piece of tender fish, replied, "We start planting tomorrow." On the morning of September 26, 2023, I was lying in bed scrolling through the news when I read that our city had set up several temporary shelters. I got up and peeked through the curtains to see several private cars leaving our residential area. After our 4th family meeting, we decided to stay put at home since we had enough food. Before starting to plant, it was crucial to ensure the soil was nutrient-rich to support healthy plant growth. I changed into an old black outfit, put on a hat, and, together with Dad, moved the soil we bought online from the storage room to the balcony. We poured out boxes of soil, mixed in fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and fungicides, and kept turning the soil to ensure it was well mixed. This took the entire day, and the scorching sun had me sweating profusely. By dusk, even with sunscreen, my face and body were patchily sunburnt. The soil was ready. We could start planting vegetables tomorrow. There was also good news today. The news mentioned that the zombie virus was being controlled, advising everyone to stay indoors. Additionally, the government would drop food packages by helicopter tomorrow, containing compressed biscuits and bottles of mineral water, enough to sustain a person for a few days. On September 27, 2023, upon waking up, I saw several food packages on the ground in our neighborhood. After discussing with my parents, we decided to leave the supplies for others in our community who needed them more. We continued yesterday's work, sowing seeds that were easy to grow and had short growing cycles: onions, ginger, garlic, cilantro, sweet potato leaves, spinach, lettuce, cabbage, small bok choy, mustard greens, garland chrysanthemum, cucumbers, and chili peppers. I buried them seed by seed into the soil and watered them thoroughly. The morning quickly passed. After lunch, I revisited my taekwondo practice, which I hadn't done since starting college. Given the current situation, it was time to get back into shape. After a busy day, I walked into the living room where Dad was browsing short video clips. I grabbed a large box of chocolates from our supplies, including my favorite filled chocolates, and munched on them while lounging on the sofa and scrolling through videos. The videos were all about zombie situations. One posted yesterday showed a house surrounded by zombies, with the uploader desperately seeking help. There had been no updates from him today. Another clip showed a young man surrounded by zombies outside our community. His cries and screams filled the air as he was gruesomely consumed. The video ended with the zombies breaking into the community, and the person's phone was dropped in the chaos. A heavily made-up female influencer ran from zombies in a skirt, with a few zombies sluggishly trailing her. High-intensity filters made the zombies' faces eerily smooth and pale. Comments below the video criticized these influencers for staging photos during such a dangerous time, potentially endangering others. A young boy wearing a GoPro showed a first-person view of scavenging for supplies and fighting zombies, armed with a baseball bat. He agilely dodged and struck down zombies, clearing a path. In a small supermarket, several survivors took refuge, and 2 police officers maintained order. A young mother discovered her child outside the supermarket looking unharmed but distressed. She screamed to let her child in, but the police stopped her, as there were no zombies outside at the moment. The video abruptly stopped after showing one of the policemen drawing his gun and fatally shooting her. It appears to have been filmed by a survivor hiding somewhere in the supermarket. The discussion under the video is mixed. Some criticize the police for excessive force and disregard for human life, while others argue that extraordinary times require extraordinary measures. Some criticize the woman for ignoring the safety of others in the supermarket, while others blame the bystanders for their indifference. The most baffling part is that some even sparked a gender debate, which I find utterly incomprehensible, with comments like, "Women think they're fairies and got what they deserved," and "Men only ever attack vulnerable women, worse than zombies." The next video features a man with thick eyebrows and big eyes named Joseph, who looks familiar. Recently, we've been learning basic agricultural knowledge from his videos. Joseph has a large family, enclosed by high walls, making it very safe. He owns hundreds of acres of land, hundreds of chickens, ducks, pigs, sheep, and cattle, even a large fish pond, and has several warehouses stocked with surplus grain. Although we currently have no issues with food, I still envy the wealth of resources at Joseph's home. They really are a major household. Joseph is also kind-hearted. In the video description, he offers help to nearby friends in need through private messages, noting that his supplies could support dozens more people. And he could also assist with farming and breeding. I uneasily said to my dad, "Could this attract people with bad intentions?" Some well-meaning fans also warned him in the comments, "Brother Diane, you should be careful of bad people during these times." Joseph replied that he and his family would be cautious. Unexpectedly, the next video was a follow-up released just today by Joseph's daughter-in-law. After yesterday's video, a young girl contacted Joseph, claiming her parents had met with misfortune and she had been starving for days. Seeking help, Joseph, without suspicion, sent his address and even drove to pick up the girl so she wouldn't get lost. Unfortunately, that evening, a group of young men armed with homemade guns stormed Joseph's home, and the girl was in league with them. They brutally killed more than 10 members of Joseph's family and several survivors who had sought refuge at his home, thanks to Joseph's wife, who fought fiercely to protect them. His daughter-in-law managed to escape through a back door with her baby granddaughter in her arms. She rode a tricycle back to her parents' house that same night. In the video, the young woman cries incoherently. Most of the explanation is provided by her brother, who ends with a caution to everyone to be wary of strangers. This video sent chills down my spine, more disturbing than any zombie attack. With Joseph's household of over 10 people wiped out, and our family of 3 with abundant food and land, we could easily become a target for others. We decided to be even more cautious, especially with strangers whose intentions are unknown. Helping others must be done carefully, prioritizing our safety to avoid the so-called savior complex. After watching these videos, we decided to reevaluate our current situation carefully. Our neighborhood is not large, consisting of only 10 buildings, located in the highest floor of a central building. We have a panoramic view of the entire area, located in a remote, developing area. I learned from a casual conversation with a security guard a few days ago that less than 20 households have moved in after renovations. Observations over the past few days also indicated no signs of other people or zombie activity within the community. Considering safety, My dad suggested we check the property management office for spare keys to prevent others from discovering our traces and directly accessing our building. This would also allow us to lock the main door and the building, keeping zombies and outsiders out. We agreed to proceed with caution, observing the neighborhood situation over the next few days before taking any further steps. As of September 29, 2023, the seeds we planted a few days ago have sprouted tiny green shoots. The chicks and rabbits have also grown a bit. The scattered food packages in the neighborhood remain untouched, confirming our belief that no one else is left in our community, other than a few zombies occasionally wandering past the main road at the community's entrance and a few private cars speeding by. No other human activity has been observed. We decided to start implementing our plan. After lunch, my dad and I got ready and carefully took the elevator from the 30th floor down to the first floor. We now worked together seamlessly and managed to reach the community management office without issues. At the entrance, I gripped a small knife, ready for any unexpected situations. After my dad used his access card to open the glass door and stepped back to observe the surroundings, ensuring no one was around, we headed to the front desk and pried open the drawer. It contained spare keys for all the buildings, safety doors, and main gates in the complex. Although access cards were primarily used now, keys were still available in case of power outages. My dad packed all the keys from the wall and drawer into his backpack. We also found a toolbox left by the property management, not sure if it would be of use, but we took it anyway. After gathering everything, my dad locked the door of the management office from the outside. We then went to the main gate, locked it as well, and returned to our building No. 5. After securing the building's main door, we barricaded it with tables from the activity area, according to our plan. We also locked every safety door on each floor to ensure that if anyone or even zombies breached the building, each floor would serve as a barrier to slow the enemy's advance. This task was quite laborious. As we moved through each floor, we had to ensure it was safe. My dad kept watch while I locked the safety doors. Fortunately, the keys were clearly labeled with stickers indicating the building and floor numbers, making them relatively easy to find. We climbed the stairs floor by floor until we finally reached the 30th floor. Breathless, we locked the door, and my mom, who had been anxiously waiting, whispered, "What took you so long?" I was so scared. We sent the elevator to the 30th floor, turned off its power switch, and decided only to turn it on when we needed to go out, ensuring that aside from us, others could only access our floor via the staircase. With the task completed successfully, we felt much more secure. Additionally, since the apartments in our complex had uniform high-quality decorations, they looked very similar from the outside, making it hard to tell our unit apart from the others. It felt like we were hiding in a safe and secret fortress, hardly noticeable by outsiders. Exhausted, I sprawled on the sofa and exclaimed happily, we're really so safe now." On October 1, 2023, we set up a duty roster for 24 hours a day, excluding sleep. Each family member took turns patrolling and observing the interior and surroundings of the complex for any abnormal signs, ready to respond promptly. My mom naturally wakes up at 6 a.m. every day, so her shift is from 6:00 a.m. to 2:00 p.m. My dad's shift is from 12:00 p.m. to 6:00 p.m., and as a night owl, I take the 6:00 p.m. to 12:00 a.m. shift. That evening, after dinner, my shift began. I moved a chair to the window, slightly opened the curtains to avoid making the room too bright at night, and turned off all the lights except for a small night lamp. Tonight, my dad made braised pork again, which was so delicious that I couldn't help but have an extra bowl of rice, making me feel sleepy. While keeping an eye out, I browsed through my phone to wake myself up and learn about the state of the world. The first video seemed to be filmed in a supermarket where a few hundred uninfected people had taken shelter, currently guarded by a few security guards and the management. They stored all the food in a warehouse and took turns guarding it, responsible for rationing food daily to everyone. However, as hopes for a return to normal life dwindled over time, food supplies decreased, and conditions became harsher. Some security guards even started harassing women, and, shockingly, some women, desperate for food, resorted to offering themselves to these men with access to food. I sighed. It seemed that the apocalypse had given rise to many new organizational structures. I saved the video, deciding to show it to my parents later. The next video I saw was posted by Mr. Huang's daughter-in-law the day before yesterday. She actually revealed Mr. Huang's home address on social media. Soon after, several more vicious criminals broke into Mr. Huang's old house again. They didn't linger, merely looting all the resources they could find. The dozen young men involved in the crime hadn't even had a chance to enjoy a comfortable life before they all tragically met their ends. The next video was from a pregnant woman, who was crying desperately at home. Her two little girls, aged 1 and 2, had been starving for days. The food packages distributed to them had been stolen by neighbors, and their home was out of supplies. Her husband had abandoned them and fled days ago. These two videos weighed heavily on my heart. The next video featured a group of students escaping the city by car during a virus outbreak, finding the military on the outskirts of the city, and receiving timely help. The video also mentioned that the military was reorganizing, planning to begin clearing the zombies from the edges of cities less affected by the virus, and gradually forming safe zones. This video lifted my spirits a bit, and I looked forward to the day they would reach City X. I walked into the living room with my phone, only to find my parents not watching the news but watching Empresses in the Palace. Instead, my dad, a bit helpless, explained that he couldn't win the remote control battle against my mom, and then surprisingly, he started to explain the plot to me. This woman loves this man, but when she finds out he has a new woman, she plans to harm her. I teased my dad a bit for getting so caught up in Empresses in the Palace, and showed them the videos I had watched today. They mentioned that the news today also talked about the military reorganization and that they would distribute food packages again tomorrow. However, the situation in City X was still severe, so the cleanup hadn't started there yet. This news gave us some hope. October 2nd, 2023. Today was another day of farming. After a night of rain, the skies had cleared, and almost all the seeds had sprouted. The military had captured an important member of the A terrorist group responsible for the R virus. Despite intense interrogation overnight, he remained silent until he heard that the virus was somewhat under control. Suddenly, he looked up, smiled eerily, and said, "This is far from over." What did he mean by that? No matter how much they pressed, he refused to speak further. Seeing his eerie smile on the TV, a sense of unease grew within me. But regardless, we must continue to live our lives well. October 3rd, 2023, originally. I planned to plant some flowers and vegetables on the balcony, just to pick some fresh fruits and vegetables from time to time, but the 30 square meters of land would not be enough to sustain food for a family of 3 and feed for chickens and rabbits. So, we set our sights on the rooftop space. Each building in our complex has about 800 square meters of space on the roof. This area is more than enough to grow our food. We grabbed the tools we had and started planning and clearing the rooftop. First, we needed enough soil. We planned to cover all areas of the rooftop with soil, except for the few dozen square meters reserved for solar panels and some unusable spaces. Since we had used up all the soil we bought online during the initial balcony development, my dad thought of the many trees planted around our complex for greenery, which naturally meant there was soil. So, we decided to start collecting soil from various green areas around the complex. We gathered all the large woven bags and shopping bags at home. My dad and I each carried a large backpack, and with a cart borrowed from the property management, we set off. My dad reminded me, although the complex seems safe now, we must be as cautious as the first time and not let our guard down. I nodded, and we quickly reached the ground floor of our building. Starting with the greenery area behind the complex, my dad and I took turns keeping watch and working. I struggled to shovel soil into the woven bags, moving from one spot to another until the bags, shopping bags, and backpacks were full. This took an entire afternoon, and with dirt-smudged faces, we used the cart to transport the soil back home. I was internally grateful 100 times over to the security uncle who lent us the cart. Otherwise, we would have had no idea how many trips it would have taken just relying on our strength. October 8th, 2023. Today was another day of digging soil. I felt a backache and could hardly straighten up, completely exhausted. At 11:30 p.m., with my parents already asleep, I yawned continuously while keeping an eye on the surroundings of our complex. I plan to go to bed early today as the past few days of work have left me utterly exhausted. Just then, I noticed a motorhome parked across the street in our neighborhood. I thought I might be seeing things due to my tiredness, so I rubbed my eyes for clarity. Indeed, it was a white motorhome. There were no suspicious activities inside our neighborhood, and no one was around the vehicle. It seemed like the driver might still be inside. Why would they stop here? Could they be just resting temporarily, or had they discovered our whereabouts? Was there a possibility of ill intentions? Recalling the tragic experiences of people in a video I had watched earlier, I felt a sense of alarm and quickly made myself a steaming cup of instant coffee in the kitchen. I decided to stay up all night by the window, waiting for the motorhome to leave before going to sleep, so that I could alert my parents immediately if anything unusual happened. As sleepiness gradually overtook me, I yawned and sipped my coffee. The instant latte was delicious. The rich flavor of the coffee blended perfectly with the sweetness of the milk. There seemed to be no movement from the motorhome. Time was passing so slowly. At 3:00 a.m., overwhelmed with fatigue, I browsed through a forum and found a question about zombie apocalypse novels where characters resigned to fate. The quality of the novels discussed in the responses seemed impressive, and I liked a few. At 5:32 a.m., my heart was racing, and I no longer felt sleepy. It beat erratically, as if it was trying to leap out of my chest. By 5:42 a.m., the sky began to brighten, and the golden light of sunrise enveloped the earth. It felt like ages since I had last seen a sunrise. At 6:13 a.m., my mother finally woke up and was startled to see me looking like a panda by the window. "What are you doing?" I quickly pulled her over, peered through a slit in the curtains, pointed at the motorhome, and whispered, "This motorhome appeared last night, but I haven't seen anyone leave it or noticed anything else unusual." I didn't feel safe, so I stayed up all night. My mother immediately felt sorry for me. "Why didn't you wake us? Your eyes are all red. You should go to sleep now." Still worried, I reiterated my concerns. "Let's not water the plants today. Keep the curtains drawn, and try to keep quiet. We don't want to be discovered." Just like the people in the video I showed you yesterday, my mother tucked me into bed, covering me with a blanket. "You sleep for a bit. When your father gets up, we'll keep watch together. If anything happens, we'll call you. Rest now, and we can face whatever comes later together. Call me immediately if anything happens. Just sleep peacefully. We're here." Her words somehow brought comfort, and I quickly fell into a deep sleep, free from nightmares. When I woke up, it was already bright outside, and I could smell food cooking. It was noon. I hurried out of my room. "How is it with the motorhome?" My mother, sitting by the window, turned and smiled. "It should be fine. There's just a young couple in there, and they haven't noticed anyone in this neighborhood." As I peeked through the curtains, just as my mother said, I saw a young man and woman happily transferring groceries into the motorhome. Upon closer inspection, they both seemed to be under 20. The boy was tall and handsome, and the girl was pretty and delicate. They looked perfect together. My father brought the food to the dining table and advised us, "Still, let's be cautious. Appearances can be deceiving." My mother and I nodded in agreement. I asked my mother, "How did you know they were a couple?" She gave me a knowing look, the same one she had when she introduced a potential match to my cousin. "I just know, they are definitely a couple." Seeing them joyfully carrying loads of groceries from the convenience store back to their motorhome, then preparing 2 bowls of instant noodles and 2 cans of cola, climbing up to the roof of the vehicle, and chatting and laughing as they ate and drank, I noticed 2 finely crafted bows and a bag of arrows beside them, reflecting inwardly, in an apocalyptic world, to have a sturdy RV, access to ample food, beloved ones by your side, and weapons to protect oneself and loved ones is akin to being celestial beings bound together by fate. Thinking this, I also felt somewhat sleazy for spying on them as a single bystander. As I picked at my delicious fried rice, I comforted myself with mixed feelings that I was just carrying out a surveillance task, continuing to watch them. 3:15 p.m. While sipping the rock tea brewed by my dad, we continued to monitor the movements of the RV. In the afternoon, they moved some supplies from the convenience store back to the RV. At that moment, I saw something caught their attention. Following the direction the girl was pointing, a rabbit, looking tame and chubby as if it had escaped from a nearby farm, hopped past them and started nibbling on the grass. It wasn't very skittish or quick. The boy quickly grabbed a bough near him and aimed at the rabbit with practiced ease. The rabbit, as if sensing danger, leaped forward just as the arrow flew, narrowly escaping the shot. That kid's got good archery skills. Looks professional," Dad remarked, sipping his tea while peering from another corner of the curtain. Undeterred, the boy jumped out of the RV, closing the distance, and readied another arrow. While the girl stood by his side, cheering him on with a big smile. "Come on," I whispered from a distance, cheering them on too. Spurred by the girl's presence, the boy focused intensely and drew the bow again, aiming at the large rabbit. "Not good," Dad murmured softly. Just then, as my focus was entirely on the rabbit, I shifted my gaze just in time to see several zombies silently emerging from the woods behind them. Drawn by the scent of human flesh, the boy and girl, focused on hunting the rabbit, were completely unaware. Without a thought for concealment, I hurriedly pushed open the window, wanting to shout a warning, but it was too late. A zombie leaped forward, pouncing from behind towards the boy. The girl instinctively shielded him with her body, clumsily pulling out a small knife from her pocket and stabbing at the zombie. Another zombie attacked, biting fiercely into the girl's right hand, eliciting a blood-curdling scream from her. The boy quickly pulled out his knife, first striking the zombie that bit the girl's arm, knocking it to the ground. But as another zombie bit into her shoulder, the girl struggled to stab it in the head with her knife. The boy hurriedly followed up with another stab, and both zombies were dispatched. However, by then, the girl was severely wounded, displaying 2 ghastly, bone-deep bites. I remembered the news mentioning that the virus's incubation period could be long or short, with persistent high fever until zombification, perhaps due to blood loss or the onset of fever. After using her last strength to deal with the 2 zombies, the girl collapsed without a chance to speak to her loved one. The boy dropped his weapon, rushed to embrace her, and began to sob uncontrollably, mumbling to himself. I watched his lips closely. He seemed to be saying, "I'm sorry." He stubbornly cried, repeating, "I'm sorry," until the girl, initially unconscious, began convulsing and opened her eyes. No longer human, it seemed she turned into a zombie quite rapidly. My fists clenched. There was still time for the boy to run, but he glanced at the girl in his arms and refused to let go. The zombified girl mercilessly bit into his shoulder, tearing off chunks of flesh, yet he would not release her. Tears unknowingly filled my face, and no matter how much I wiped, they wouldn't stop. In that moment of distraction, the boy quickly turned into a zombie. And the zombie girl, noticing that the taste of the corpse in her mouth had changed, got up with a sway. The zombie boy, seeing the zombie girl get up and leave, followed her in a daze. The once upright boy had half of his shoulder bitten off, making it difficult for him to maintain his balance while walking. He staggered and swayed along, and together they aimlessly moved forward. At least they were still together. 6:31 p.m. I ate unusually little for dinner, filling my bowl only halfway and barely touching the vegetables, my mind preoccupied with the couple in the RV. The happy scene we just witnessed seemed to have turned to ashes in an instant. I felt deeply saddened for them, and for the world. Dad served me a piece of meat and briefly described what had happened, trying to comfort me. He then hesitantly said, "I think I need to go out tomorrow. There might be things we need in their abandoned RV." I couldn't help feeling sad again. "I'll go with you." I can't imagine if such a thing happened to you." I couldn't finish my sentence as I started crying. Now that my parents were both here with me, I feared whether we would one day face such a tragedy. Although I had seen many similar incidents on the news, witnessing one firsthand was a different reality. Just imagining such things deeply pained my heart. I couldn't let Dad go alone. Mom also seemed melancholic. "It's really too dangerous. Can't we just not go tomorrow?" Dad quickly reassured us. "I promise we won't end up like what we saw today." He continued to persuade us. "We don't have any ranged weapons. The homemade one we made isn't strong or accurate enough. If we could find some better bows and arrows, it would ensure our safety in unexpected situations. It's a rare opportunity." I wiped away my tears and nodded firmly. "I totally agree, but you have to take me with you." October 10th, 2023. I tossed and turned last night, hardly sleeping a wink, plagued by intermittent nightmares, so I ended up waking up even earlier this morning. After a simple breakfast with my parents, we prepared to head to the RV. Checking the equipment we were taking, I felt extremely nervous. I always get nervous when we go out, but today the feeling was particularly intense. I began to fear that the happiness we took for granted could disappear with one mishap, and I even started to shiver slightly. Mom quickly noticed my abnormal state and asked, "Are you feeling unwell? Maybe I should go instead today." I shook my head firmly. Dad patted my head and said, "I remember a book saying that sometimes, the fear of danger is 10,000 times worse than the danger itself. seeing my puzzled expression, he added, "Just let nature take its course. Even if misfortune occurs, it's destined and unavoidable, rather than worry about such things. It's better to live well in every moment we have." His words comforted me somewhat. But the necessary tension remained, keeping us vigilant. Our main goal this time was to acquire weapons. In these apocalyptic times, weapons are as crucial as food. We also planned to search the RV for anything else we might need. We shouldered our weapons and backpacks and set out, driving from the garage to the RV. After reaching the garage, I pressed the 30th floor in the elevator before stepping out, letting the empty elevator ascend to the 30th floor. This was a precaution we had agreed upon with Mom to prevent others from sneaking into the elevator. After starting the car, we slowly drove towards the RV and parked behind it. I nervously surveyed the surroundings. After confirming it was safe, Dad and I got out of the car. On the grass next to the RV lay several bodies of yesterday's zombies. Beside the corpses were startling bloodstains and chunks of unidentifiable flesh, reminders of yesterday's tragedy. We approached the bodies, and Dad picked up 2 bows and quivers, strapping them on before checking inside the RV. The couple from yesterday hadn't managed to close the door of the RV. I stood guard at the door, and soon I heard Dad's excited voice from inside. It turned out there were 3 finely made bows and several large bags of arrows inside the RV. We made quite a haul. Soon after, Dad found 2 binoculars, several gas masks, a handful of Swiss Army knives, and a first aid kit inside the RV. The kit was stocked with essentials like cold medicines, anti-inflammatory drugs, antibiotics, and we also found several cases of mineral water. These supplies were just what we were short on and desperately needed. We worked together to transfer these materials back to our vehicle, although there was still plenty of food and other supplies in the RV. We didn't seem to need them as much, so we left them for whoever might find the RV later. After that, we headed to the convenience store across the street and scavenged through its supplies. I found several sewing kits, some sharp scissors, a bunch of nail clippers, sets of knives, and other items, which I packed into a large woven bag. I also saw various daily necessities like toothbrushes, toothpaste, shampoo, shower gel, soap, laundry detergent, and more, thinking we might need them later. I swept them all into the big bag, along with various kinds of toilet paper, sanitary pads, towels, batteries, candles, and such. Although we weren't really short on these at home, I packed them all in anyway. Anything that seemed like it might be useful later, I didn't pass up. Eventually, the shelves were completely bare, and that's when I stopped. We headed home with the car fully loaded. Once home, I took a shower first, and by the time I came out, Mom had already disinfected and organized the supplies we brought back. Now, 2 rooms, half the kitchen, and most of the dining area were crammed with supplies, giving us a great sense of security. We also brought back 2 cases of mineral water and 79 arrows. Dad was busy setting up a target to teach Mom and me archery. I suddenly remembered that I hadn't watered the plants this morning, so I went to the terrace and started watering. That's when I noticed a row of green leafy vegetables that had grown quite lush. I remembered these were called fast-growing veggies, similar to baby bok choy. I happily called my parents to show them our first harvest besides the scallions. I took a small knife, and although these baby bok choys were not fully grown, they were tender, which is when they taste the best. I picked the largest ones and cut them with the knife. When we initially went grocery shopping, considering that greens don't last long, we didn't buy much. We were tired of eating cabbage and bok choy for days, so it was finally time for a change. I washed the muddy baby bok choy, cut them into pieces, and planned to stir-fry them. Thinking about it lifted my spirits, and then I took out the chicken I had marinated the day before and put it in the oven. While thinking about all this, I also made a minced meat and eggplant dish. Lunchtime came, and I called my parents to the table. The enticing aroma of roasted chicken and minced meat with eggplant filled the air, but the most tempting dish was the stir-fried baby bok choy. Watching my parents take some, I also carefully took a bite. I had never realized how delicious greens could be. The freshly picked baby bok choy was both juicy and tender, and we quickly polished it off. After a satisfying meal, we all lay flat on the couch, me nestled between Dad and Mom, enjoying the happiness that was both usual yet hard-earned. Throughout my life, although I've had fun with friends and classmates, only by being with my parents do I feel complete relaxation and peace. I felt very content and had no desire to venture out again. That afternoon, we didn't go out, so Mom and I continued organizing various documents. I found many duplicates in the computer, and after deleting them, I freed up a lot of storage space and downloaded some new files. Our phones also had ample storage, all being 256 gigabytes, plus Mom's spare phone. After deleting unnecessary apps and videos, we suddenly had an extra 400 gigabytes of space. I encouraged my parents to save useful articles and the like on their phones, preferably in text or image form, as videos take up far too much storage. Lately, we've been busy downloading materials when we have the time. Knowledge is power, and once we had enough food supplies, the importance of building a knowledge base should not be underestimated.